Welcome. We are live. Stuff should be all working and booted up. It has been a little bit. I didn't think season would be over this soon, but we're going to be going over it today. That's the stream. Probably the last season 16 stream. I did like I want to start off the stream by saying there is some peak moments. There's some pretty good stuff. Um in between the problems, but we're gonna be going over everything today because a lot happened like yesterday on the forums, and then I went to sleep. There's a ton more that's happened, so I think it's important to go through and look at. Um, we're chilling at 2 out of 100 players right now, and that's mostly due to the official status of like this season is over for sure. So starting off with like, yeah, it's been a bit since we've been streaming the game. The reason for that mainly has just been there's been a lot of kind of grinding and looting to do, and it's been a very difficult process. The past like week of gameplay for a lot of players kind of burnt people out. So I want to like talk a bit about pretty much all of that stuff. Loading in as Lyle Dial, my boy. Lion amongst dogs, lion amongst dogs. And yeah, I'm gonna start off just by going to my base. We're a little bit away from it right now, but we'll give it one last look over. I know, are any of my dudes online? No. I was just checking my faction members. Yeah. Well, it is us. We are in a house right now because last time I logged off, I kind of got in here. I looked around a little bit, and then I gave up. I stopped playing for the day. Just logged off in here. Lyle's waking up. He's gonna go back out on his adventure, try to get home. So yeah. The server has been kinda rough. Here's a another player's base been hanging out with. I accidentally offline raided that base too. I'll go over that later. This season has been, I think, a learning experience for everyone. But one of the main barriers to RP or entry this season has definitely been the like amount of distance and like area this is. Like, I'll show you the map. It's insane. For like comparison, this was like Louisville. Like, Louisville was about like this big last season. And it was pretty tight. You go over here, that's basically the size of Dogelprundy. This map's kind of like unfinished. It's not the best map in the world, definitely, you know. Oh man. The last time I went have to run down this road. So there's been some cool moments, like, one of the, like, I guess cool parts about the challenge was, I remember one time walking down here, and, like, Lyle had, like, a sprinter on him, and he was freezing to death. So I just got mauled and, like, died. And, I had to wait until somebody could go, like, grab my shit or whatever. So that was an interesting moment, and then, like, a week later, there's a player going down the road that had, like, the same situation going on, Bunch of zombies teaming at them, trying to eat them alive. So that was cool in a way. Because I was able to, like, pull over the car, Lau starts smashing them up and stuff, and he helps them. This season has been rough, though, like, as far as, RP with the characters. Especially for me and my group, and some others that are in similar situations, like, it's been very, like, closed off RP-wise this season, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean it's been, like, completely crappy. There's been a lot of, like, cool players and, like, people who, like, started playing and this was their first season. Like, I've had some cool times, but yeah, you see what I mean with the running. This is only like 3-5 minutes of running, it's not that bad. I chose a spot close to the metro, but still, you know, it's a little bit of a journey, not much in between, but, oh man, back to the news compound, the New Era World Services. So, going into here, the base is, like, nowhere near complete or done, you know? It's been a struggle to try to get, like, there. I'll show you what we got done so far, though, because I think it's a good representation of, like, why a few things should change. One of the problems this season was, like, you couldn't craft nails, and you don't really find nails out and about. On top of that, the price for a single box of nails was like 20,000 rubles, which was basically like a high-end quest, or a 4 people selling as much food as they could to the NPC faction to get 1 box of nails, and that'll build you like, you know, 1 or 2 of these rooms maybe. It is not much. You'd see like the bottom floors don't even have flooring yet, you know. A little bit of furniture and a little bit of love put into it, but it is what it is. This was going to be the office space so that we could do like a printer setup, like newspapers, stuff like that. Our storage space, you know, it's pretty messy. We never really got it organized, that's funny. But, you know, we got 2 or 3 rooms constructed on the bottom there, finished. I almost had enough materials for the radio tower. And we're going to build a boxing ring out back, because we're hoping that would facilitate a little bit more RP and some interesting scenarios. But here we are, you know. It was cool. I was about to get, like, the faction up to 12 members, I think. I had 2 more people joining today, and we're at, like, 9 out of 15 right now. And it's all been, like, natural in-character stuff. So that part's been, like, really cool. And I'm hoping that a lot of those people are like gonna play again next season and give it a shot, you know. But just going into a one of the problems for barriers of RP was like definitely the map size. Your nails are insane to get this season, you know. Like I know the ins and outs of Zomboid pretty well, and I just know, you know, after 100 hours, I was looking at it, and I was like, if I'm having this much trouble looting, and I'm not having fun looting, then I know chances are a lot of other people aren't. Because I don't really play to, like, min-max or, like, lockdown locations and stuff. I like to, kind of go, okay, we need food, well, we're gonna go to apartment buildings, or we need meds, we're gonna go and try to hit the offices and medical facilities, you know, places that might have that stuff. That and just the natural aspect of like, oh, I haven't gone to this area yet. I wonder if there's some cool lore or like a location there to check out or something that'll hint towards or foreshadow a future event, you know? There's a lot of that in the last season I played, and it was really peak, you know? At least compared to a lot of servers or experiences. It's definitely hard to top that. Or, like, to match it, exactly. But, yeah, it's been rough, you know? We've been trying to get it together, trying to get, like, stuff going, but it's really rough. Even if we get the building materials, we kind of figured out, too, like, people do not like running the metro, because the metro's so long. So, we just naturally didn't have that many people coming by. Like, I don't think I've seen a single, like, group who isn't, like, a local stop by, really. The map had to get cut off as well. It used to be a lot bigger, but they had to cut it off, obviously, for, well, reasons, because one of the cities, I think, for loot was broken, and then 2, it was just like people were not with it, you know? They weren't feeling it. Now, it's not all down, though. I mean, some cool things about this season was definitely the effort that, like, I think Lore Team went through to, like, make stuff kind of cool. Like, I have a ticket open for, like, making an office, you know, for printing stuff, when I based here, I put in a ticket and just to see if I could base here, like if this would be viable, and if I put like boards on there, could I be like safe? And they're like, yeah, you're all good if you do that. And they threw a bag on top of here. So then we got a ladder to climb up, and we grabbed the bag, and I'll show you, it has like some cool lore stuff. But it's unfortunate because the world building just wasn't really there. There wasn't a lot of like NPC interactions. There wasn't a lot of encounters. The prison was very lackluster for a lot of people. And a lot of people didn't understand why, like, just the guards or the NPCs like lacked so much character in a way that like you know, we didn't have like any questioning about the murder and stuff. It was very like and it is like post-apocalypse. There's so many like things that go into it, but it just wasn't fun for a lot of people. The situations we had in prison, instead of like really interesting dynamics, were like you know, people trying to steal each other's pants and stuff. Which is kind of funny, but it's just like there wasn't really many ways to RP with it. Like a good example is I was bringing firewood to the people that would like hang out outside of Lyle's office. It was very difficult to like try to get a conversation with people that, you know, were anti-Westerner, which was like I'd say over like 2/3 of a server. And the people that did want to hang out with Westerners, they felt like they'd be like excluded from their group, or kicked out of like their RP hub and stuff, you know, if they did try to like do a more social route. So yeah, this is the news compound though, you know. It's like we're going on week 3. It's not the best progress in the world, but I'm very lucky. Like the people that I was playing with, all the news people this season: Lucky Tank, Enigma, Masquerade, Needy Flames, Hanran, Lucoro, Hannah Song, Sandu. We got like 9 people, including me. I think that's pretty good, you know? That's respectable. But it's all over. It doesn't matter. We are in hell now. No, it's rough, but honestly, I'd rather the season end in 2 days as well, before like it just gets worse or more unbearable, you know? Because yeah, a lot of players, including myself, are just kind of getting like fed up with like the gameplay. Like I would log in and I would remember it's -40 to -80 in game, so there's that, you know. The zombies generally aren't that fun to fight, at least for myself this season. The few players that did find the gun spawns and the loot spawns really locked in on them, you know? Like, you couldn't really just play like a normal RP or a normal character, like, oh, we're gonna go hit up the military place and get some stuff. Because most of the time that place was like already wiped clean, and like the time schedules for when it would respawn were like locked down. People were checking all the time. Like, the competition was steep. I'll show you our armory. Like, the trading economy is just non-existent, you know. Those players don't tend to want to give out their guns, because it's like, if they give that away, then someone else has it, and they can use that against them. My main problem was, like, I just want to, like, shoot zombies. I want to do, like, infected clearing squads. I want to, like, participate in that aspect of the game. And even with, like, 1 aiming, I only found, like, enough to get me up to, like, 2.5, because I only found a bit of shotgun shells before, you know? Maybe like 24. But yeah, this is our entire armory. We have like 11 Tokarev pistols. All of them don't have magazines. Like, the loot was very repetitive and stale this season, you know? Compared to how diverse it could have been. There really wasn't any hot ticket items that you could trade. Like last season, you could at least get by with like having some bioshield syringes, because those syringes would allow you to go and loot high, like, you know, like high-end areas, places that would have a lot of loot, places that were harder for players to hit, places that had more zombies, as well as like explore different parts of a map or lore and stuff. It's hard to make a player economy work, but this one did not work. Like, I traded 4 boxes of ammo for 50 sheets the other day, just because, like, I felt like it was so dead. Like, I might as well, you know, give this guy like 50 bullets for 50 bed sheets for my boxing ring, because I don't see anyone else getting like opportunities to trade or RP and stuff like that, you know. So it really like it gets to a point where you gotta kind of like play in a way where you're either going to continue to play for like you know, your goals and your character reasons and etc. And to like, you know, I started to play it like just how can I make it better for like everyone, especially like at my faction and stuff, you know. So I handled most of the tickets and stuff. We did pretty good too. We've had some really good RP here. I really liked like a lot of the characters that I had here. My like one character, Otto, I almost stole his van in the middle of a night, and like he came down the tower and stuff, and we just struck a conversation, then teamed up and stuff, you know. There's Cladvi, who I saved from Buhalovo, and that was like down here. We had to walk on foot all the way back up here. We ended up finding some cars here that became our first vehicles, you know. Um, there's some little moments that stand out to me that you know, were definitely worth it. It's not like this season was a complete bust. I don't regret playing at all and stuff. What I do want to do, though, this stream, is once we get out of Lyle Land, is we're gonna go through, like, some of the reasons and some of the things that people have, put on the forums and, like, feedback and stuff. Because I also am like submitted a feedback thing a bit ago, and I'll just summarize it a bit because I've already gone over it with like staff. My main points in it were like this season, the things that are like killing the player base and just burning people out, making them not want to play, was the exclusion, like how exclusive it was, the clicks on the server, and just like overall unfriendly atmosphere. Like unless you had an out of character connection planned with somebody, or you just lined up with like their roleplay, it was very hard to have an open, engaging roleplay with different outcomes or dynamics. There's a lot of issues within, I think, both like the player base and you know, likely some of the staff, because it's like everybody needs to kind of reflect and figure out different things, you know, to make next season a bit better. One of the things was like VoIP range was cut off super short at the start of the season, which was rough for like a lot of us, you know. I like using PZRP and I like using VoIP. Do we have Boulevard of Broken Dreams? Perhaps somebody steal it. No, they didn't. Oh my, God is alive. Yeah, we are living it though. I mean, like, oh, the battery's dead. Bastard. You get a different battery. It was unfortunate, like, this season there wasn't as many bonding moments and stuff. Like, one of the good examples is, like, Gym RP, at college. Just everybody put on music and hang out in the same area and RP, you know, chill and shit. Oh, poor Lyle. Hasn't even got to use his hunting rifle. Damn it. Well, it works at least. It's a cool sound. I didn't get to hear that sound that much this season. But, there's a lot of problems this season with, like, the PZRP too. A lot of players are using languages, so down here, like, if I go to my languages, Lyle knows English, French, and Russian. But a lot of players were just speaking in Russian, so if you knew Russian, Ukrainian, or Dniprovian, then you would have, like, an overlap, like you have 3 languages in one. So it's like Lyle knows, like, 5 languages almost. Really cool, except for the point of just, like, it wasn't good for players and interaction, you know? It made it way easier for people to just naturally exclude others from RP, or exclude others from, like, the conversation, or talk behind their backs. Seen it a lot in, like, Season 15 with different things, like, ASL and other stuff where like you're talking to characters and like while you're having a conversation with another party, they're like turning to each other to like sign language and stuff. And that type of stuff can be pretty frustrating for a lot of players, but it felt like super heavy this season on that front, you know? So, we have a few things to go over. Ooh, quite a few. But yeah, like my feedback thing that I sent in, you know, that was around a week ago, and maybe I should have done it publicly, but yeah, I figured it still was good because a lot of the things recommended are being implemented now, at least like polls and a more transparency on that front, you know. But suppose Lando Lyle is gone. Tragic. But, you know, at least we accomplished this much. That's like positive. Like how like the plans were coming together. And yeah, if we were here for another 2 months we could have done like a little bit. But I don't think as much could come from it as if we just like try to do a different like season, you know? Alright, let me grab my... Boom. There we go. Okay, so... To start... How do I explain? Yesterday was like big. You'd see like the most recent posts are all like God is dead, redirecting the conversation, staff feedback, staff toxicity, season 16 cancellation and retrospective, and concerns regarding server health. I want to go over the concerns regarding server health one first because I think it brings up a lot of interesting points. And like I said, like the stream isn't to like criticize or really like get at anyone or anything in specific. It's just reflecting on the overall scenario and then reading it, you know? We're gonna do that together, isn't that special? So, Taco Cat says, first of all, I'd like to say this feedback is not to criticize staff members. This is about the server health. I'm not really sure if it should go in staff feedback or community discussion, so let me know if I should go put this in community discussion instead. With that out of the way, here's my concerns. The first concern, low player count. A little more than 2 weeks in, player count at peak hours are hovering around 20. At least to me, this is very concerning. I understand that player count drop off is normal and the player base isn't as large as it was in season 10/12, but it being this low early into the season is rather concerning. In my opinion, it's a result, at least in part, of the following. And before I go into that, yeah, we're having like the player count on going into week 3 is like the player count near the end of month 3 of last season. Like, it is really it's steep. It's a lot of people got burnt out really fast, and these points are like pretty valid. Too large of a map. I believe the map has now been shrunk, but it seems to be a little too late. The map was gigantic, leading to groups being extremely spread out. If RP was unavailable in your town, it took a significant amount of time to travel to even try and find RP. Very true. Barriers to RP, one of the issues being the extremely large distance between towns, which I would say isn't great. But there are more factors often preventing RP. So far, consistent/deep RP is often limited to cliques or factions, and no RP hubs have really formed. This can make it difficult for players to find meaningful RP, especially if they are new to the server and don't have OOC connections. Additionally, at least for me personally, the Nationalists really formed a barrier to RP. After very early season interactions with them, I'm playing a Westerner, I felt there was no meaningful RP to be had other than hostile RP where I got shot, robbed, etc. So I completely avoided the area, which I've been told had a good amount of RP. In conclusion, there have simply been far too many obstacles to RP for. an RP focused server. And I think that's really like stand out. Like a lot of us weren't playing bandits, we were playing workers and people sent to the wall to work. So yeah, it's like if a character is like aggressive or hostile or an asshole, um yeah, they probably, they run for strikes, and then it's like, okay, you don't come back to our base or else, because the escalation is there. Um the problem was like a lot of us, like I said, it was like I'd be trying to fill up a fire for people talking, and they'd just be looking at me like funny. And that's about the extent of RP. And if you engage with them, it's like, well, if you're having a private discussion. Um, on top of that, some stuff was definitely like, more gate kept or kept to certain groups. Like, and I don't know if it's because people knew I made newspapers last season, but I had a lot of people like instantly going up to me, like, because calling me like the reporter character. And like I was playing a radio host this season, but it's easy to get confused. Just I wasn't doing newspapers until I had like setup and stuff that made sense, like lore wise. So in that aspect, I felt very um like people just knew, or I don't know, maybe like people like treated my character a bit different, especially once they knew I was playing him. But that's a side point. Anyways, the bugs. I've had issues with desync, DCing, but I don't know if that's a widespread issue. More than anything, the problem has been with the map. For one, quite a large portion of a map didn't spawn any loot, which is one issue. Also, the entire map in general has poor loot balance. Many areas just have house dresser loot, even if they would normally contain loot, i.e. bars. To my knowledge, staff has put a ton of work into debugging and fixing the map, but ultimately the map is just very buggy, and it can lead to difficulty getting loot, which can lead to burnout / loss of interest. Yep, that is like one of the main things that keep me from looting. I don't I don't want to go out and loot in the cold to go find nothing and bring back like trash again. There's only so many times you can do it before it's just insanity. Not new player friendly. Maybe I'm wrong, but this season seems very unfriendly to new players. I do not know when spawning in the starting kit. I do know when spawning in the starting kit has been expanded, but it's ultimately only a part of a problem. With loot spawns being so buggy / inconsistent, new players can have difficulty finding basic gear and loot. Also, with it being minus 45 degrees, I believe even wearing the most insulated clothes available in character creation make temperature a massive issue. While this is obviously an intended difficulty, it can be extremely intimidating for new players who either A, don't have an axe to chop down trees and start a fire, or B, don't have the clothing to not quickly get hypothermia when outdoors. On another note, Zed spawn, at least to me, seem very frequent. I don't know if it's intended difficulty feature, but in the small amount of time I've played in an area that actually spawns Zeds, it happens very often. Every day when I log on, Zeds along the roads are fully respawned, and I assumed they've been cleared out in between playtime, considering there are bloodstains on the ground. While difficulty can be engaging for some players, constant Zed respawn can scare off new players or tax the limited weapon loot they've acquired. Which is like very true. And yeah, and then like they gave some suggestions for improvement. Either way, this started a bit of discussion. Staff came back and responded and whatnot, but another person came in with like more points. iHally. They said, I wasn't sure if I was gonna bother, as my group and I have thrown in the towel permanently, but I'll go ahead and throw a few things out that I've noticed just as regular player and community rep. Staff clicks and the overlap of player clicks are the worst I've ever seen on a server. It's bad, really bad, and I don't think it's fixable without a huge rule set and staff change. I've never in all my time RP and seen it this bad. I will absolutely not name names, but this season I saw someone dropping hot fucking lore right next to a group. He was actively trying to get the group's attention to let them know, and I know this lore was hot off of press because I was present, so they weren't aware. The group completely 100% ignored that person's presence. This is just one example of hundreds of times I've seen new players completely rejected because they don't have a house brand name. I even shoved the person to make sure desync wasn't happening. They were just ignoring the person because they were having a monologue, not an emote, not a little chat like, thanks for info, now piss off. I saw this happen multiple times. No wonder the server can't keep players. Half of the veteran players are actively hostile to them OOC. You see it quite frequently with staff and help chat. Ooh. Staff favoritism towards players. I'm not going to point out anyone here, but you guys have favorites and you definitely let it show. Multiple times, point one was brought up to staff and it was brushed aside because the offending player was a darling of the community. Yeah, there's definitely like some people that have like RP plot armor, and like that is like a conversation a lot of people talk about. I won't go too much into it because it's just silly shit, you know? But yeah, you know, it exists and stuff. There's favoritism for sure. It's human nature and shit. So it's shitty, but it's like hopefully that can be improved on. Multiple times with tickets, I've seen certain players that are frequent flyers and tickets with multiple times that they should be given harsh punishments. Hate to beat a dead horse here, but they were darlings of a community and they were definitely not giving appropriate punishments. And no, I'm not talking about just the PvP chads, as if such a thing existed for this turd of a video game and a shitty excuse for PvP. I'm going to keep it real. You as staff have your work cut out for you if you want to make a real long-term change to the server health. At this point, if you want a real how can we fix a situation and win back the trust of PZ community / RP community, you need to close off a server for a while, completely redo your rules, and a restructure of your staff and leadership team. I'm not going to name names because frankly, I don't want to cause a flame war, but y'all know who the bad eggs are in a regular player base / within staff. It doesn't need to be said. Adios, thanks for 4 seasons. I only truly wish best for the server in the future, you know? um and yeah, this post like went on like a little bit. um there's more here, like more points that are like all pretty fair. I agree with like a lot of it's just very intense, the difficulty of this season, you know. But this then led into God is dead. Going to page 1 of it. So Aquila, he's a community rep and a player who's been around for like a lot of seasons. And he says, "Alright, Bubs, I've been approached by several people inquiring about my thoughts on the state of a season, and the current consensus is not good. I've intended to push the players' feedback as community rep report, but considering that I completely agree with such feedback, it was decided to end up as a public discussion. I'm quite aware that this season was an attempt to do something refreshing and new, that the map is unfinished and fucked up, and that there are various bugs related to the mods. But they were hastily fixed by Cactus and Kate, so kudos to them. I am also aware that Project Russia is an unfinished map into the season, and while we can shift the blame on that fact, I believe that would grossly incorrect, as the major issues of this season are still the underlying issues that continuously appear from season to season and weren't properly addressed or addressed at all. So, yeah, it's like some of these things are very like familiar to even what happened last season. Yo, what's good, Cheddar? Welcome to the stream, man. But last season like lasted over 3 months, and there was a lot of like good player dynamics, you know. There's a lot of good lore, there's a lot of good NPC stuff. A lot of people have just been on the same boat of like this season has dropped the ball. So as for the feedback itself, I'll split into 2 segments. 1 is lore and 2 is gameplay. So first, going over the lore. Even before the season started, I voiced my concerns about the Ridding lore. Lepsy and Vinegar would know about it. Season 16 had more than a month to be prepped, and yet the published lore felt so rushed, and if I'm to be completely honest, severely half-assed. And yeah, I don't know, I liked the lore, but it didn't hit as hard as like the whole college theme. And I'm only comparing to my 1 season on this server, so they have like a good reference, and people understand who've played. But like one of my main concerns was like the character that was killed, Josiah Irashevich, or like the Iron Fist ruler of the area, you know? He essentially was killed, but we had never seen him. So everybody started out in a prison scenario, and like I've brought this character up so many times in character, and most people just like don't give a fuck, or like they don't get it, or it's like it's just like dead plot, you know? But anyways, going on from that, what are you saying is, besides the idea of forming a fictional Slavic state, the entire lore didn't include much above a specific cultural elements of area: Russian, Ukrainian, Dnipropetrovskian. The entire Slavic vibe of a season feels completely off, bastardized, and westernized, and honestly, not even well researched, starting from the name of a major lore character to more intricate things. Lore then even further westernizes the plot, so I fail to see why you would even push for a Slavic area season if Deprovia is to be heavily westernized. It would be the same if you used Project France and then shifted the lore heavily towards Russification. Next on the menu are lore premise and factions. The entire season feels like what I've heard about for what I've heard about season 8 wrapped around Rooster's medieval feudal wet dream. Besides reclamation for me, there's absolutely nothing appealing about the lore factions. They felt completely generic, stereotype, feudal authoritarian faction, stereotype feudal clergy faction, stereotype bandit faction, stereotype mercantile faction, and a minor faction that nobody gives a fuck. And once again, the Slavic culture within them was very poorly represented as well. I joined one of the factions myself just for a reason to not miss out on something, but besides initial connections, we were giving fuck all to do with that plotline. And yeah, like I was in Hope's Hand, and it like there's some stuff to do in Chase, but it was very like none of it led to me like knowing other Hope's Hand members right when we started the season. I had to figure that out in character. And yeah, it's like depending on who you're telling, it could be good or it could be bad to tell them and stuff. So that's a cool RP dynamic, but it also just like barrier to RP, you know. Switching to in-game lore elements, there's almost nothing going on. Besides that gold standard event in which jobs given quite literally made half of the new players within my faction quit, there's nothing going on. Yeah, it was rough, man. A lot of people were not impressed with the first event. Almost no random encounters, no random NPCs, no visible reclamation presence beside radio worrying. World building lore spots are rare or quite unappealing. After prison, my feelings are that there is almost nothing to interact with, which is horrifying statement to make for less than 2 weeks of a season. From what I could understand, Dolgoprendi was supposed to be a major lore plot point of a season, yet factually, it's only a barren city with a few more joggers than usual and fancy loot spots. Nothing more. Gameplay. 3 things come to mind immediately. First is the map size. I'm unsure who and on what drugs the person was on that decided the active map size this season. I was honestly baffled to see how extended the playable area was. You did try to correct it in the end, but I think it was far too late. Shift was pure OOC, IC reasoning lacked. Yeah, so essentially the map got split off in half, and there wasn't like much RP buildup. There wasn't like radio. It wasn't like, oh, the hordes are coming, it's getting out of control, or the Huss have taken over. And if you stay here, you're going to get PK'd or something. Like, you have a few days to get out. Or there wasn't much IC reasons for people to give a fuck. It just, like, deterred even more people from logging on because they had to move their base, you know? Spending 30 minutes to 1 hour to traverse the map via metro is also a baffling idea. If there weren't hordes on the roads respawning, it would be faster to take a car from one end of a map to the other than to take the metro. It curbed the player traffic and RP so much. Which is true, yeah. If you had a vehicle, you might as well drive. Metro's gonna take longer. Accessible locations. Another major issue was the accessibility of high loot areas. Motostrike camp open, military base open, military checkpoints open, airfield open, garage clusters open. What the actual fuck? All meta positions were neither used for lore nor closed off for season progression, nor properly balanced. One or two trips to such areas, and you and your group is set on everything they can need except for food. And these locations were open from the get go. You could literally get your hands on a weapon faster than a can opener since first checkpoints were 2-minute walk away from a starting area. I've never played this map before, but after I witnessed what's going on in server, I booted single player and flew around in admin. After 1 hour of flying around, I could already find and understand which ones are meta spots, and they easily could have been balanced or reserved for lore/progression. This clearly points to the fact that even though map is fucked up, in my opinion, the issue lies in primarily staff neglection. There obviously hadn't been any extensive testing in preseason, because if there were, most of the issues would have been spotted within hours and travel times. M16/AK zombies, hidden buildings, and all those meta spots wouldn't break the loot economy and could have been balanced. Progression. There is no map progression at all. This season is neither hard or easy, but is definitely not in the middle either. It is either brutal for new and skill issue prone players, or entirely easy for more competent ones. It appeals to neither side of the player spectrum and leaves both disappointed. As I previously mentioned, we are 2 weeks into the season, and you are struggling if you are new or incompetent, or you already closed the PZ loop, and now you're getting slowly bored. There are almost no places to open, no zones accustomed to player types, no world building places/interactions that appeal to players either. This season was announced as Season of Scarcity, Struggle, RP Cooperation, and Extension of the PZ loop, but in the end, there was none of that. And all that clearly reflects on the fact that 60% of a player base has dipped within 2 weeks, while the rest are slowly losing motivation to log on. This was advocated as Season of Struggle, and the only struggle left now is struggle to find players to RP with beyond my own faction and imminent neighbors. Conclusion. Do with this feedback as you see fit, but honestly, I think PZRP is in desperate need of change both in approach and staff structure. Some underlying issues and same mistakes made by same people are translating from season to season, and I feel like people are slowly losing confidence in the server. If I am to be completely blunt, I think the server is currently surviving solely on Kate's efforts and efforts of a handful of staff that are still invested in it. End of response. Or end of copy pasta. Yeah, it's rough. Before I read more, just digest that for a moment. It's pretty straightforward, it's not that fun this season. The RP isn't good. The lore isn't like really there. Taco Cat responds, I completely agree with this. To be honest, the world seems so dead. Even when there were more players online, everything was so spread out, it felt like there was little or nothing to do. RP was fun, but it was so incredibly hard to find it, ultimately wasn't rewarding. I think a lot of underlying issues are seen by the constant player turnover. I joined in Season 9, and I'll be honest, I don't know many, if any at all, that are still around while not taking a break or becoming staff. Casual players don't really seem to stick around. I think that's important to reflect on. Yeah, it's a hardcore server, at least with how it is right now. But we have plenty of casual players or people who just want to play like 2 or 4 hours a day or here and there. I think part of that was variance. For every season 12 and 15, you also had season 11 and 14, and perhaps 16 now. Another part is, as iHally said, issues with staff. Honestly, wholeheartedly believe members of staff have best intentions and interests of players/server in mind. However, there are serious problems surrounding staff, such as cliques and favoritism. Quite simply, There are players that staff seem to favorite and have on a good list, and those on a bad list that staff just don't like. Is it warranted? Maybe, but actions and rulings shouldn't show clear favoritism just because they're liked for things they did in the past, or vice versa. Adding on to this, it isn't necessarily staff exclusive, but clicks are real, and they really hurt organic RP or RP at all. It obviously isn't easy to fix this with rules, as forcing RP kind of defeats the purpose of a server at all. However, there is a simple fact that veteran players often ignore / avoid RP to RP with their guys. This makes an environment that is often hostile or bad for new players. This season, obviously, it's also compounded by the environment like in-game that simply isn't new player friendly, especially if you're not an experienced Zomboid player. I was lucky to fall at least partially into some former / future / current slav clicks, but it doesn't go that way for all players. To be honest, I wasn't burnt out on this season a few days ago, but with some reflection, I really am. There's simply not much to do. I'll be active, I'll be eagerly watching for changes, but as it stands, I don't foresee myself playing much more on the server this season. And then, yeah, they agree. Now, Vinegar Strokes, he's founder now, responds. He says, I specifically take the blame for the map size, and to be honest, I think I was not thinking clearly. I wanted players to experience more of a map, given that it was new and shiny, without really accounting for the adverse effects it would have on roleplay. Likewise, the length of the metros followed a formula. We use an all-sewer / tunnel construction. However, I don't think it was thought through very well. I admit that I was slightly dismissive of how players felt of it, having played other RP games where walking for extended periods was kind of a norm. I do want to point out that at some point, players actively chose to base themselves in random far corners of a map. Fully aware of its size, I can identify at least 3 groups that are literally on the edge of civilization and engage in internal roleplay. I think to an extent that's fine if that's the RP they're mostly interested in. I believe staff will certainly mitigate issues like that in the future. I personally did not account for that either at the time. In summary, the map should have been condensed, and more interesting areas of a map should have been utilized in the lore. I take blame for that, as well as the selection of a map itself. So yeah, it's like pretty much like they agree. And as far as like lore, lore team can speak on that. Dollhouse RPers should hang with the clicks. And that's really like how some of this, like season feels like, I mean, some people just want to hop on and do some simple stuff, or they hop on and RP with like a few people, or they just don't have like 4 to 8 hours to RP, If you only have like an hour or two, then it's nice to be able to like walk for 10 or 20 minutes, have a bit of interaction, hang out there, or whatever, then maybe log off there, then get back on next time and RP more, Some people have to do it like that because their schedules are just like so busy. Other people are on like 12 to 18 hours a day, But in all, it's like you have a mixture of all those players that makes the shit, So, Monkey Man responds, hello and thank you for your feedback. I'll be addressing the aspect of gameplay concerns, specifically the loot and its accessibility. So about the military camps being open. This was done intentionally so that players throughout all forms of experience would have a chance to loot. Nail crafting was abolished in this season in favor of having players make use of the many buildings available in the playable area. I really don't like that. I just gotta cut it off quick and say, because I have it in here, there's a player who was like, so on the 3rd of February, this guy Clippy, he's in the Discord help channel. He's like, I think I'm at the right place at the wrong time. And like, this is what it looks like when you miss the season launch for PZRP. It's brutal, Bros in the dark. What the fuck's going on? Where do you go? What do you do? So that was a huge barrier to entry for like a lot of new players. other than that, going down to like a few days later. So Clippy, they hold out. They manage to power through for like 4 days. They grind the fuck out of a server, and they end up getting their metalworking up to level 10. Really good. They're a metal worker. Now that they're metalworking 10, they can engage in some lore tickets. They can make some high-end stuff. One of the high-end things that you can do is forge nails. Um, poor guy, he hits level 10 and it's just still red. And he's like, the fuck? Like, I have everything here. I have the skill. I have the units. What's going on? Why is the nails recipe red? Because it's disabled. Why though? We disabled this season. Maybe it'll come back some other season / time. Balance. 2 thumbs down. It's rough, man. It's rough. I don't know why they did this either, because like, dude, I'd be pissed. I'd be crashing the fuck out. I'd be like, if this was my first season, I would have lost my mind. Like, just getting to that point of it not being able to make nails. It's not like we have gunsmithing. It's not like we're making like crazy weapons and swords, I was able to get a gun in the first 5 minutes of doors opening. I can vouch for the unbalanced nature of loot spread. Yeah, and it's strange because like I found like most of the apartment buildings were worthless, and they you could get food and stuff from there, but a lot of the loot was very like repetitive. And then there's the odd locker that had like 3 to 7 gun spawns and a ton of ammo. And the competition was like steep, especially too. Like just trying to get like RP to float, not having out of character connections to start the season off with was really rough, I think. Because I made my faction and I grew it all like naturally. So I stopped playing you got stuck in a prison. Yeah, the guidance was like very rough. Like if you logged back on after and you missed the horde event, it was just like go figure it out, go run out into the world. And the world's so damn big, So like what do you fucking do? Anyways, though, going back to this, I recognize that how that may have appeared to have hobbled the metalworking occupation, but to make up for it, we made an interactive way for them to be still viable in the form of being able to smelt the many scrap and burnt vehicles found on the road, as the map mod rendered them non-dismantleable. This doesn't address nails though. Like it gives metalworkers something else so that they can get more metal out of like vehicles that are like exploded and broken, but it doesn't like address the fact that like nails are for RP. Like most people need to set up for rooms, they want to build furniture. Yeah, you get your carpentry levels and yada yada yada. But in all, it's like, you shouldn't have like a 100-hour grind to go through to get nothing out of it. Like metalworking 10 is a huge feat for a lot of people, and any skill at level 10. I don't understand why we couldn't have done the same ticket process with nails. Maybe make, I don't know, if you're so worried about the nail economy, make it so we can only make like 10 boxes a week or something, or do some polls and figure it out that way. Dismantling vehicles and having to open up more tickets is not the way to go about it. That's not fun for a lot of people, to be fair. And like it is a cool, like, at least they're doing something with like broken content or like stuff that just doesn't work. But this doesn't work either, you know what I mean? As for the gun locations listed, it is yet another decision made by our understanding of a map when we were working on it pre-season. It was revealed that the mod author decided to use a singular container type to distribute guns in practically every gun container found on the map. That meant that regardless of where you looted, it would be the easier spawn of a checkpoint just outside of Dolgoprundi, or if you trekked all the way to Cherno AFB, you'd get the exact same loot roll. So after carefully looking through the list, it was decided that these locations would be made available for all players. It's true that due to the lack of initial map knowledge of a map, that certain areas went unchecked initially. It was then rectified. It was, but it wasn't. Like, that's the thing, like, a lot of people have, like, the biggest issue with, I think, I can see the effort, and I could tell you're trying with, like, the decisions with the cars and stuff, and, like, making the bases open. But at the same time, that doesn't just like defeat the whole purpose of like majority of the map is worthless and only these areas are good. You know, compared to last season where I could be looting like normal houses or tool stores and etc. And I could find like katanas or like pawn shops and shit, you know. Um, just the looting like cycle felt a lot more natural. It felt like I could go and I could look at the map in game and be like, okay, I'm gonna go to this hospital, I'm gonna go to this one, and then we're gonna go to Giga Mart because we need food and some tools, you know. And I could plan out a loot run like that, and then whether I got stuff or not, it was still like rewarding. There's other stuff along the way. There's so many apartment buildings and so much just like stale area in this map. It's made it really rough, you know. So the only places that players really want to go to loot are the military bases and stuff like that. On top of that, you have the most like locked in players, like they know out of character and they're sending their characters there right away, you know? So it's like what do you do? What do you do to like combat that? You get fried, basically. There's not many like choices if you're like just normally playing the map, you know? Um or just trying to RP it out and discover the map naturally. Like one of the things is like I didn't want to go into admin and like fucking zoot all around the map and figure it out, you know? It's a lot more engaging to discover it naturally. Like season 15 was like the first time I was really exploring the map of Louisville other than like events and isolated like scenarios and stuff, you know? So that made it like really fun for me in like different ways, you know what I mean? Um But anyways, not to like get too sidetracked. So, as stated, the list of items found in these containers were looked at and carefully considered. This can be seen as some players who found things such as M1 911 magazine and an 308 mag would have seen that those were incompatible with any gun. I made sure to have them removed from the loot roll, and through some persisted in initial world generation, they have stopped since spawning. The decision for gun and ammo accessibility comes after a season such as Season 13 had guns locked behind mall grates for lore reasons. The intent was so that staff could control the distribution of guns, but what ended up happening being the case is that gun spawns would open, and only a few select players with meta knowledge of a fact were the ones who benefited the most. It wasn't until I picked up the reins of controlling lore group in charge of it that the rest of the gun locations were made available for all players. This ammo and firearm disparity was also felt in the following season 14. Due to the lack of gun and ammo accessibility, players on opposing sides struggled to pursue any means of hostility out of fear of losing their weapons. This snowballed into a scenario where if either faction lost a battle, they were essentially considered stone-aged, as their guns were stripped from them. Yeah, that's real as fuck, you know? It is true, like, most people just end up, like, getting their shit jacked. Anyways, what's it called, therefore, the intent was to make these gun locations available as high-tier guns that the ammo belong to do not spawn, so to elevate that fact. We intended to distribute these guns through other means. We wanted players to be able to defend themselves not only from other players, but from zombies as well. As most know, zombie difficulty varies from player to player, and finding a sweet spot that caters to all players, both new and veteran, is difficult. With guns and ammo so readily available, the hope was that they could then become things of trade for people who can attain them and then distribute them to those who can't. However, the culture of guns and ammo in Project Zomboid is at a state that people would rather hoard them, which is fair considering past seasons of scarcity. So, yeah, a lot of people have like this PTSD. They don't want to trade for guns or ammo. So it's just like lack of economy and lack of chances to get that type of stuff if you don't have a loot spawns, you know, down packed. And as for like 60% of a player base dropping off in 2 weeks, as for this, as harsh as it is, the reality is that it's true. We didn't realize the scope of what it means to operate a season on an alpha map. Staff have been working tirelessly to try and remedy this in ways that players may not see through That is an excuse. I do apologize for inconveniences that players have experienced and can only say that we are still doing what we can to make it better going forward. So it goes back and forth a little bit more as well. So far it's kind of rough. Some highlights from like this point though, because I read this yesterday. It is like half of a goon player base is level 6 to 7 aiming 10 days into the season. That's how broken the spawns are. It's very consequential. I have M16 and probably 50 boxes of 556 on hand as well. But even if we ignore guns and ammo spawns, these bases spawn a fuck ton of tools, gear, and construction materials. In 10 days, my faction amassed more than 60 boxes of nails. Cake can attest to that. Oh my god! He got 60 boxes. I think from dismantling screws, I've maybe made 20. My whole faction combined, we've made 20 boxes of nails. We found about 3. Jeez, we fucking suck. No, you know what I mean? Like, MSI had to end, has 4 M1 911 mags. Yeah, like, it's rough. Like, yeah, if you weren't hitting like those spots, definitely like you're fried. And then I guess like, yeah, there's no reason to hit other spots. What are you gonna do? Stop looting the airport? He returned with 70 kg of ammo. Oh my god, that is a shit ton. As I've already stated in the post, these meta spots could have either been locked behind lore or progression, but instead they were left accessible and it completely broke loot economy. I don't know how or what was tested, but at a single glance at the loot containers in these meta spots, it would draw a completely different conclusion than yours, since it shouldn't under any circumstances be a regular thing to return with 100 kg, much more was left behind, worth of ammo on an average trip. What I also find odd is that you state that you opened this area up so the entire player base can get a hold of ammo, all while you know that loot goblins like me or Etso or similar gremlins exist. If you open a meta loot spot and do not make it high risk to reach, there will always be some gremlin that will loot cycle it, which is completely valid, which is a completely valid thing, but then the loot won't trickle down to the rest of the players. That's how we have a situation where I have 30 Takarov mags and TRL complaining about not finding any. It's so funny, because yeah, like a lot of us, we just can't find this shit, or like we can't get it because we haven't like locked down the fucking of a loot cycle spot. The issue with this is that it suggests that staff are supposed to revolve the loot economy towards experienced players who prioritize looting above all else. As stated, there is no difference in AFB Gunspot, as they are exact same loot rolls in other easier locations. This is something we cannot change because it's baked into the map, and by inconsequential, it is meant as no matter how you loot these places, you'll never get anything higher than a hunting rifle. So the idea was to let players get access, so when they get their hands on a good gun, they'd be able to actually use them without having to worry about ammunition. Obviously, the sheer amount that was initially available should have been reduced, but in my defense, I wasn't aware that there were buildings not listed on the map, as this is an unfinished product. That said, I think that might boil down to how guns and ammos have been regarded in seasons past. As far as economy goes, I'd like to see gun culture change, so players who have 30 pistol magazines would be more inclined to trade them to players without. As much as I would love to see that as well, I just don't think this season, like, really facilitates an environment for that, you know? There's not enough world lore, there's not enough, like, character dynamics, and people just aren't interested in putting their character in a risky situation, when so many people are playing in, like, a certain style. Now it starts to blow up, I guess. Misu comes in with a post, and this is a bit about why they stopped playing this season. I agree with everything here. Like, Hallie, me and friends have quit the season, and I'll tell you something else for free. Last straw was Vinegar Strokes. So this is mainly regarding Vinegar Strokes. I guess, like, because he was running one of the big Antag factions, and he's like a project, or he was a project lead, now he's a founder. Putting aside the fact that this guy, one, admin abuses by spawning shit in for him, and two, and his buddies too. Oh, sorry. Okay, putting aside the fact that this guy, admin abuses by spawning shit in for him and his buddies, and is the constant subject of forum reports that would have a regular player permanently banned ages ago. Yet the project lead status that he has still kept for some reason keeps him protected from any meaningful consequence. 3. Could win a gold medal for the amount of players he has single-handedly driven away from this server. The nail in the coffin for us was his faction. This one goes in deep, I think. We weren't loving this season to begin with, for all the reasons Aquila has already lined out. The lore, while it's a great read on the forums, doesn't materialize in-game. Project Russia is unoptimized, the loot spawns are fucky, server population is hitting record lows, and a map size slash Slavs versus Westerners arc totally divided the players we did have. Vinegar's faction, Stroika, is largely to blame for this. This season, I started as part of one of Stroika's allied factions. Due to so many players jumping ship this season, my faction started to crumble. We didn't have a leader, and so it felt disjointed and without direction. So me and a few others decided to branch off and start our own faction. We had several faction goals, but the main idea was that we'd bridge this divide between Slavs and Westerners, and therefore create more RP opportunity for our player base. Leaving meant we were no longer allies of Stroika. Vinegar informs me, oh Sealy, that he will be antagging our faction. I said it straight up. It quickly found its way to Vinegar through the rumor mill. Well, we're already not having buckets of fun this season. If Vinegar pulls up with his band of PvP goons, all of 6+ aiming, AKs the Loot Goblin, the military base, for on the day the QZ fell, and the bare minimum amount of RP buildup, we are probably going to quit this season and play on our private server. Disclaimer, this is not because we're opposed to hostile RP. We love hostile RP when it's done in a way that focuses on RP and creates an engaging scene that leaves everybody satisfied. That's not how Vinegar and his people do things. They initiated with bare minimum RP, required for it to not be a rule break, and started shooting. Not only that, but they do it fully aware that the targets can't win. This is an RP server, and most people aren't running these goon builds and cycling loot respawns on the gun loot. The way they play belongs squarely on a PvP server, which is very true. I think if a player is just like consistently looting the same place, that should almost be like a fail RP or rule break. You know, it's kind of like, it's ridiculous to me, the fact that like I have to watch my diet, I have to do these different things. Like, I know my buddy, I'll just say, like, I know somebody's been pulled into a fucking fail RP ticket over eating a bunch of salt. They ate like 30 things of salt in game, and they were just pulled into an inquiry about it because they checked the logs. Now, it's funny shit, and they're not in trouble. It's just like, you know, it does feel like super fail RP when, like, the day the QZ falls, instead of RPing and trying to get stuff together, they're like, military base, and then to this other place that we're gonna live at. You know, like, it's crazy, because it's all OOC planning, none of it's natural. So, anyways, we said we would quit, not because we have a problem with hostile RP or getting raided, we just weren't interested in being part of a power fantasy these guys are living out on players that are just trying to RP and have fun. We'll participate in Antag RP, not gooning. This was Vinegar's response. I mean, if hostile RP leads to a raid, that's still RP. I don't think raid should be the first step of hostile RP. I'm only saying this because if you guys genuinely don't want to engage in hostile RP, I think you should primarily play on that server you told Chris about. I'm not saying this to be rude, it's just that this server probably isn't for you. To summarize what he's saying here, actually, here's why you're wrong about what you feel. and heard you were planning on quitting the season. Why don't you just quit the server? Since the staff team come to Vinegar's defense throughout the controversy that seems to follow him everywhere he goes, I'm going to go ahead and assume you're all happy for him to represent you all. I think this perfectly encapsulates how little the staff care about player retention. He does not care that a whole group of otherwise very active members of the community are leaving. In fact, he's showing us the door. The answer to player concerns was this. This is how things are on the server, and if you don't like it, it's probably not for you. He then reached out to others involved of a new faction and doubled down on it. Heard you're going to leave the server if we antag you. In my opinion, why wait? It's a certainly that we will. That's a direct quote. I'd post a screenshot, but it's not from my own DM, and I don't yet have consent. Before just leaving us alone, before hearing us when we say, before just leaving us alone, before hearing us when we say it's not the player experience we want, before just chilling the fuck out, he'd sooner just rather straight up tell us to leave. Damn. Yeah. 100% OC meta shit. It's just fail RP if you're loot cycling. And yeah, big ups to Misu for calling it out. No, totally. It's like, because like I'll get into it later. Vinegar's helped me a lot on the flip side when a staff admin last season ripped up all of our RP clothing because they came back and the RP that naturally occurred didn't align with their out of character plans for the season. And, you know, it's a good case of, like, the click nature of this shit. But I'll get into that later. Like, I have good stuff with Vinegar Strokes. Or, like, I have only had, like, really positive interactions with him. But I totally agree. This is, like, fucked up, you know? You shouldn't be, like, telling players to go to stop playing or this isn't a server for you. Obviously, it's a server for us if we're spending hundreds of hours on it per season, you know? Whether they like it or not, you know, a lot of us aren't toxic. A lot of us don't bother people out of character, and, you know, out of character, most of it's just, like, trying to figure out how we create good RP for each other or other people, you know? I feel like, it's definitely, like, bad, faith to, like, call out, or just how, like, steer people towards leaving the server when they're a bit, like, overwhelmed or frustrated with, like, how the roleplay is going, you know? But, let's continue. I try to be Vinegar's friend even after everybody and their mom and their dog told me to avoid him, and that he has been problematic for the server from time immemorable. It took a sec, but I did come to see it myself. I didn't even respond to that message because anytime I've come to Vinegar with a concern, I've left the conversation feeling unheard and unsatisfied. For someone who preaches about how approachable he is, I feel like I can't get anywhere with him. I expect Vinegar would love to blame this season being a failure entirely on the lore team. He has repeatedly said he doesn't like the way they do things. And then the photo here. I low-key hate the lore team. Damn. That's fucking rough. Couldn't tell, because they're either dumb or lazy. Maybe even both. Like, why did I have to have a say? That was an option. Laughing my ass off. So something with, like, lore staff stuff he's not too impressed with. I'm sure Vinegar Strokes is a good guy, but this is effed up / weird. Yeah, no, it's definitely shit we gotta reflect on, and you know, this is like a direct player experience, and there's a lot more too, I think, going into it, which is fucking insane. I'm just here to say that while I do think the lore team could have done more in-game, I love the backstory and deep dives and appreciated all the hard work put into those. That's not why this particular group threw in the towel. To finish off Vinegar, since I've got you blocked, I'll address you here. I think you and your friends should primarily play on a PvP server. I'm not saying this to be rude, it's just that this server probably isn't for you. I think, like, that's fair, and that's fair for her to say, because, like, his response is, like, this server isn't for you. The server's meant for everyone who's into RP, you know? If you can abide by the rules, if you can get by, then you have a choice to play in a bunch of different ways. You can play a good guy, a bad guy, etc. At the end of the day, though, there's, like, main things that are in structure, like, rule-wise, to make sure the RP is engaging and good for everyone. So that, you know, compared to a PvP server where, like, if you're playing, like, Harvest Z PvP, you're fried because, like, you go to sleep without locks and other shit, you're gonna get, like, offline rated or whatever. At least when I played, like, on that server and shit. And that's just, like, the nature of those servers. It's PvP. That's what makes, like, RP servers a bit different. You have these character connections. If I go and rob someone, everybody's like, what? that character robbed that character, it's real, you know? If I kill someone, it's a real, like, it's impactful and shit, you know? It's not just another video game death. Shit like that. Anyways, going on. Aquila talking a bit more on the ammo and said it what's it called, like, just how people do play and stuff. And then Punk said they're currently being more players browsing this thread than actually playing should say enough about the current state of a season. Because, yeah, there's like 30 to 50 people on this thread yesterday, and there was like 20 people online peak. It was rough. But yeah, going down a Taco Cat continues to respond to Misu about the vinegar stuff. Since it seems like the gloves are off, I'll come in with my very biased opinion. Vinegar is a prime example of the problems I personally identified in this server. Favoritism. Vinegar is extremely controversial. That part is an opinion. Personal opinions aside, they have been in numerous arguments and controversies with multiple players across multiple seasons for multiple distinctly different things. This, in my opinion, vinegar has repeatedly been protected and favored by staff. It is my opinion that if a regular player were to be involved in these controversies, were to respond with disdain and or vitriol, were to repeatedly, seemingly insult others, they would have been permanently banned of a server. To be clear, I'm not saying Vinegar should be permanently banned. I'm saying that if he was a regular player, these issues would have likely resulted in a permanent ban. However, staff has protected them, and he, to my knowledge, has never significantly been punished, and remains a senior staff member, co-project lead, now founder or whatever. Adding on to this, it is my belief Vinegar contributes heavily to a hostile/toxic environment for not only new players, but all players. In my personal experiences, interactions with their characters have been mostly exclusively negative, if not hostile. I understand the characters that they play are antagonistic. I understand their characters are usually of some sort of evil alignment. However, again, in my personal experiences, they often seem to be motivated by PvP and a hostile RP, more than creating an interesting, nuanced story. Ultimately, though, I'm not trying to harp on Vinegar exclusively. I understand the difference in what me and Vinegar want from the server are very different, and that's reasonable. This divide is not an issue, though. It's what creates a hostile environment to not only new players, but everyone. A wasteland where no one is satisfied with the server because no one gets much of anything they're looking for. Yeah. Whether you're RPing, whether you're trying to PvP, whether you're trying to, like, look for lore, this season was a ball drop. So Vinegar now responds, and he's got a lot, so let's get into it. He responds to the photo about the lore team. First, let me address this. I want to apologize to the lore team. I was extremely frustrated and found myself in an echo chamber within the group I was playing with daily. At the time, I was venting to a friend, and I truly appreciate the work that goes into season preparation, the writing, and everything you all do. That said, I do agree with a significant portion of the criticism directed at lore teams season after season regarding storyline and its execution. Do I think that's the only issue of this season? No, I don't. However, I do believe it's exacerbated existing problems rather than guided gameplay or roleplay in a way that enhances the player experience, which is what I feel lore should do. To be clear, I do not hate anyone on the team. I talk to them daily. My comment was flippant, and in hindsight, the most disrespectful part of it was the fact that I said it to another player. Though I've told them I hate them to their faces as I've cracked the whip in the lore mines, my disagreement with the lore team are infamous, but at the end of the day, I do appreciate the effort they put into the server, and I hope they know I don't actually hate them or that they're dumb. Sometimes I do think they're lazy. Sorry. Now, going on to the next thing. Now, for the rest of this, I'm going to treat this feedback in good faith. Misu was probably one of the most anti-Western individuals in the hub, especially during the prison arc. She got into a fistfight with one person in a prison and had showdowns with attachés. I believe they were part of a Black Flag group that exiled Toxocat for being non-Slavic, along with her friend Chance Effect, who took the opportunity to search her bag and steal from them. I'm not mentioning this to suggest there's anything wrong about roleplay. I think our group was very straightforward about its intentions. Once the prison broke, we didn't go searching the entire map for Westerners. Personally, I was involved in 4 incidents of straightforward antagonism this season. 1. Stabbing an NPC who snitched on us to the guards after getting Blanca's character beat up by another NPC. 2. Chasing down Felon in the prison with my faction. Super epic, by the way. 3. Finding Nabingo's character and caught him trying to pass himself off as a Westerner, to which mostly her faction participated in. See Fauzi, Chance Effect, etc. Holding up, and then 4. Holding up a fellow group of Slavic, comprised of Aquila and Kate, and 2 or 3 more faction mates for looting on our territory. We then took that as an opportunity to roleplay them, get to know them, and let them know our group and what we were about. It ended rather peacefully and with a solid understanding. What I want to point out there is that my interactions with most of their guys were like, yeah, don't fucking loot our area, and don't come here, we're gonna shoot you. You know, like, I never learned about their characters, or, like, I never learned about their names either, you know? Like, I didn't have any RP with them. And I think it's fair to be like, oh, this is our area and shit. There has to be some kind of RP, or, like, some kind of, like, leniency. It's like, okay, well, like, that's fine, but if we see you here all the time, you know, we're gonna let you know, like, you can't be taking that, like, as much stuff. You take what you need and get out of here. I don't know, like, at least the way that I was approached with it was really rough. I want to speak on a raid that happened on MSI. That is not the kind of roleplay I endorse. Even that had been done with no rule breaks, I still would have had an issue with it when it occurred. I was in the hospital, and I spoke to my faction about it and let them know that I didn't agree with that approach and that they were owed build-up. Anyone in Stroika will tell everyone in the community that I've been trying to adapt to feedback, whether warranted or not, to make the group more approachable. I feel we were on the right path to doing that. I have argued internally with my faction to make these changes, even if they didn't make an incredible amount of IC sense to drop the hardcore East versus West themes. And then here's a DM from Misu Sai. Men gossip more than women, you know? Vinegar says, that's why I'm asking you and not him. No, it's pretty much true. I'm just like, this shit travels quick. Chris is a former game master on the server. We talk, lol. Misu then says, my group will probably quit after the raid. Yeah. Vinegar says, he didn't say the raid, he didn't say raid, he said any hostile RP. She said, oh, well, hold on. No. Oh, well, no, hold on. He said you guys aren't into it. Well, I was specifically talking about a raid, and I told him that, so I don't know what he's on. I don't know if mild hostile RP would be enough to make me want to quit. I mean, and then Vinegar says, I mean, if hostile RP leads to a raid, that's still RP. I don't think raid should be the first step for hostile RP. I'm only saying this because you guys generally don't want to engage in hostile RP. I think you should primarily play on that server you told Chris about. I'm not saying this to be rude, it's just that this server probably isn't for you. Especially since I've seen your friends engage in hostile RP before. Jamik, Smokey, Kira, Tiro, and even Kyle recently. That's me. Recently offline raided a base for everything it had and tried to plant a note framing someone. I did that myself. Kira, Tiro, and all of them didn't do that. But yeah, no, I'm a part of their group, I guess. So I feel it's a bit hypocritical. I want to get into that after. Because I was totally like, there's no fucking RP this season, and I didn't mean to, like, offline raid a base. I thought there was a bit more rules that you had to have in order to, like, claim a base and shit. Either way, though, it was all, like, resolved and stuff, but it's like, my hostile RP was, like, stealing some items and leaving an angry note in Russian. That way people got pissed off and then went after Russians, you know? Because my character had one of the admins on the server playing a character. They came up, they held me and my guys at gunpoint. They gave my character some, like, goose hunt chase mission to go track down this other character named Strees. And I had to, like, deliver a poem to their room. So I had like very little in-character knowledge, and like I pieced it together during an event. I snuck into their base and I delivered a note. You know what RP I've gotten from that? Nothing. Nothing, because that player, they loot the fucking Air Force every day. You know? They're too busy like grabbing guns so that they can like powerhouse like scenarios and steal people to like RPing in a certain way, instead of actually creating like good hostile RP that's back and forth. Like, I'll get into that later though, but it's like the one raid that I was a part of, but it's a bit silly. Like, I fucking killed somebody last season. I killed TRL's character Roy Cobre, and that was after 300 to 400 hours of multiple. Like, I had 300, he had 300, Tiger had 300, Class had 300. Like, everybody had hundreds of hours of gameplay and story development leading into like why we didn't like this guy, or like how he had like lied to us or different things and like blah blah. And it was a natural like in player like decision and shit, you know. Like, there's some really good and really peak like hostility and like really peak characters last season. So there's no like, it's not like the excuse of like that doesn't exist on this server. It definitely does. It's just like, yeah, it wasn't there this season. Misu then said, raid, hostile RP, and tagging, it's all the same shit, and it's not about any of that anyways. We like hostile RP done well. What Vinegar does is mindless goonin that isn't backed up by RP. Time and time again, I hear, well, it's not hostile RP we have a problem with, it's good and-tagging we like. Personally, I think this is a red herring. I've been called a PvP goon for shooting someone exactly 0 times this season. When possible, I will always pursue the route of narrative and tagging than valuing kills or goods. Last season, Misu was present during a tense RP exchange between Calvin, my character, and her drug dealer friends, who attempted to creepily push drugs onto his sister, Audrey. While I understand this may have been due to an OOC misunderstanding of RP they interpreted, it was still organic roleplay that led to this moment. When I confronted them, I didn't shoot, I engaged in a very tense scene that, in my opinion, was top tier roleplay. It felt incredibly organic and opened up some great character arcs for both them and me. Why do I bring this up? Because in my opinion, Misu has a personal issue with being told the truth. I don't know what mild constitutes, and judging by the second screenshot, I don't think she does either. As she said, any hostile RP would basically cause her to leave. So yes, I did tell her that she was threatening to quit over being antagged to avoid drama, then she probably should. The way she left her faction ICly was by insulting everyone around her, along with her brother, and then walking away. If she wanted a clean break from the faction, she could have simply left instead of insulting everyone and her grandmother on the way out. I have nothing but love for Misu, but she was very kind, and when I told our faction about my grandmother's passion shortly after her surgery, and truthfully, I wish nothing but best for her, and even apologized to her. Unfortunately, by that point, I think she'd already checked out based on conversations I've had with various people. It seemed like she really wasn't looking for a dialogue. She was looking to vent or have somebody agree with her. That being said, well, I may have been somewhat blunt in my delivery. I stand by what I said. PZRP's mission statement is fairly clear about fostering a more open environment for hostile RP. It does not mean that people have an excuse to torch other players at the blink of an eye. Brutal. Kira says, I have not raided anyone this season, offline or not, I just want nails. Fuck off. Okay. I do kind of want to go over my form report, because it's so funny. It is kind of goofy. So, like, it ruined a lot of RP for me this season, too. It ruined the way that I wanted to approach the season or go about stuff. And I got kind of, like, pushed into this scenario because one of the player admins thought it'd be good RP to, like, treat me like an NPC. That's just it, you know, that's my opinion on the situation. That admin has just completely left the server. They're burnt out. They got called out for, like, loot goblinging, and then they just crashed out. It is what it is. But it's very silly shit. Not player appeals. I gotta go to player reports. So, let me remind you, this is the first report that has ever been filed on me. Like, that is like, I fucked up, or I did something that was bad, you know? And, so here's how it went. Funky Egg wakes up, what's it called? I'm unsure of when this happened. I logged out at 10:13 a.m. or so to realize that all my food, tools, cigarettes, lights, and even tailoring bench in my garage was gone and raided. So yeah, let's get into this, as I am the one who did this. As mentioned earlier, I don't know when this took place, but I logged on and, in my barricaded place, I see a note. I rush over, very excited to realize that it's not a friendly note, which is fine. RP is RP. I read the words, "Thank you for the cigarettes," and immediately check my lockbox of cigarettes. It's empty other than 2 cigarette butts that I put in there last night. Originally, I was like, oh well, shitty that it was an offline raid and not active RP scene, but it's just cigarettes, so I can cope. This could be interesting RP I can make out of it. Note for car people. So, what ended up happening was my character knows Russian and nobody gave a fuck or wanted to pursue, like, the Russian thing. My idea to combat this was while I'm searching for Strige and I'm trying to find their bedroom and put a note in, Lyle has nothing. So he started he was like trying to loot. Anyways, though, this place, like, it had some barricades on a window, but the doors were left open, the back door was open, and I thought it was just kind of like a stash or something, you know? You can have stashes on the map. We had a lot of them last season, and I'm not the only player who made the same mistake at the same base in the same fucking week. You know, let's just say that. Either way, I was like, if somebody is stashing here, or they're like, building up here, or they plan to do something here, I'm gonna fuck with them once, and I'm gonna leave this note. And I also wanted to be the one to help them. Like, if I saw the stuff on the radio, I would try to de-escalate tensions, be like, well, the Russians aren't that bad, you know, perhaps it was just somebody misguided or whatever, and try to give them the stuff back, and it'd be kind of suspicious, you know? But it'd create that RP. That was my idea with this note. So I was super pumped about these notes. I left 3 of these across the server. It was really fun doing that. Problem is, now I'm in a form report because I offline raided. It kind of sucks, you know, I broke the rules or whatever. Perhaps things just need to be a little bit more easy, though, because I'm not the only person in a situation of, like, offline raiding someone by accident. There's stashes, there's, like, rules to base. It said everything has to be locked or barricaded. I thought you needed a lock on the door or whatever, but you don't need a lock on the door. Like, it's just, like, simple miscommunication that, like, a lot of players are, like, getting confused on. As far as I know, I was almost removed from the server for this shit. I was almost, like, reprimanded heavily, okay? I've been told, like, be fucking careful now, you know? Especially with, like, my gameplay and stuff. Either way, though, these guys, like, in another server, I see, because I did the same shit to MSI, he's like, he's talking, because they're talking about another guy who, I had robbed their shit, you know? I found a base, and this one was okay. This one had no barricades on the windows. They just had stuff that was in containers that was near the MSI base. So I took stuff from there, and I left an angry Russian note, and then I dicked off. And then you can see he's like, oh my god, Malatesta, I know who wrote the note. Ah ha ha ha. The poem or the Russian note? I don't know about poem, but Russian notes. It was Croc, XD, lol. He's in a report for a similar thing. Look here. You little shit. Not me thinking an invasion was coming. Fuck me. Yeah, you know, I was starting a race war, but now, because this is a public fucking report, everybody on server figured it out, and the whole thing just kind of gets dropped, you know? Like, nobody... I'm not going to pursue it. I'm not going to keep on leaving Russian notes. It's kind of dealt with or done, you know? But that's, like, one of the unfortunate things of this report. That RP was fucked and ruined. And I wanted to, like, crash the fuck out and, like, give up at that point, because I didn't know what to do either, you know? What the fuck do I do? Shit, that's diabolical. You're, like, the nicest person off a server. Well, I know. And, like, I totally planned to help them out in character and ally with them, and, like, my plan was to push it more forward and push the narrative forward for Russians, because honestly, like, this season has put me in a spot where, like, I kept on having to change my characters in ways just to try to, like, enjoy the RP, which is natural. You're gonna do that on any season, but like I said, I had a fucking admin character come out of the bushes from middle of nowhere, hold me at gunpoint. I had all of our guys hold hold her hands up, and it was cool RP. I played it off cool. I told them, like, well, she's a small girl, she's wearing a mask, obviously she's scared. We're all right. None of us got shot. It's fine. You know, she's probably not, like, even though she's giving us threats, she's probably not going to kill us. But it just feels so forced at the same time. I have to play like that because, one, we don't have guns because I'm not a fucking server admin who's been on season to season that locks down loot goblin shit. Like, I was trying to IC roleplay with people. I told everybody, like, I didn't really want to, like, OOC faction plan. I wanted to come naturally. And after Lyle got beat up in prison for, spitting off a dog food crate, it created the whole line amongst dogs arc where, like, he was, like, telling people, like, oh, don't be mad at them. That's just how some of them are. They don't have the education, they don't have the background, etc. It's just the social dynamics were not there from, like, a lot of the other players, so there wasn't much else to push. I thought the angry Russian notes, one, this was really fun, this was cool, and two, this was gonna drive, like, good RP. Yeah, this is hostile RP and could get my character killed in time, but it's planting the seed. You see, like, instead of pulling up with guns and saying we're gonna take your shit, I almost feel like this is a better solution. At the same time, like I said, I didn't know if this was base. I thought it was like a stash or like a house that somebody was, or like a shop that someone was repairing. This is also the only mechanic shop in Nagorye. So once this was gone, it like nerfed a lot of like loot availability. But I fucked up, you know. I took for tailoring bench, I took a bunch of shit from their shelves, I took for canned food, I took like 50 pounds worth of loot, you know? And they said, my base is clearly barricaded, and it doesn't take much to come to a conclusion that someone is living here. In fact, they know that someone lives here because they left a note. Understand if someone wants to RP bandit or thieves, I encourage so, but if someone wants to do bandit cess raiding, then they must not only follow the rules, but also provide RP. This is a whole bunch of nothing. It's disappointing to see, because I would be excited to RP if they didn't just wipe me clean. I mean, wiped. I had over 20 carry capacity of canned food in a corner cabinet. Not only is it lame, they wiped me clean, but they did it while I was offline. So yeah, the main thing was like the excessive looting on my part. You know, that was not cool. I should have maybe only taken half or taken a bit, and then just enough to piss him off. I figured this would call out a radio call. So here's my response. I was like, hello, it's the nighttime burglar, Cool Kid Croc / Lao Dao here, and here's my POV of what I did and why I did it. Firstly, I apologize for ruining your RP or time on the server. Making you feel uncomfortable or just in general taking too much is sure to lead to burnout, and I know that. I'd love to have admins come collect the stuff and bring it back, and possibly retcon the tailoring bench and other items that are essential to surviving on the server. Now I'll begin to describe my POV, why I did it, and why I did what I did, and resolve this. I really value the players on this server, and my intentions were to start a race war / drive RP. But after reading your POV, I completely agree this was pretty lame. I should have considered the player behind the robbing and not just the character, even though the intention was to drive realistic, interesting RP. Here's why I did what I did and what I think I can do better next time. So I show the screenshot. Here's me at the garage. Doors are open. You know, I'm walking on the road and I'm like, okay, door's open. I'm going to go in here. After a long, hard day of not finding much, Lyle was running through the streets of Nagorye. The past few days, I had been logging off at a reasonable time, 11 p.m. or so, and today was 4 a.m. EST run, in which I was looking for supplies to build my base, along with protect myself. First few days on server, I didn't stay up late, and that fucked me. That fucked me on loot, I couldn't get guns, etc. Everybody had loot goblin military bases, blah blah, you know. I got used to playing the game poor, so I was gonna start thieving, etc., you know? Both garage doors at the front, along with the door at the back, did not have locks. I'm familiar with offline raiding rules, and since the base was barricaded, but left unlocked, Lyle decided to walk right in. A day or two prior, I just looted this entire building for a few tools that would spawn in it. Lao is a part of Hope's Hand. I'm playing a non-violent, socially friendly, and helpful character who stirs the pot from behind the scenes and does what he needs to survive, and gives these items to others to survive. He has to resort to stealing, and RP-wise, this all lines up as the loot and conditions of getting help in this world are brutal. There's no trading. There's no in-game economy. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody's giving you anything. There's no NPCs. You know, it's all, you're on your own in this world. So that's a reminder. Like in a scenario, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna take shit. I'm gonna leave this Russian note. That way, if there's some more dynamics, maybe a mystery, people are gonna look for it. You know. Either way, Hope's Hand. So the Hope's Hand faction. Hope's Hand is used to stealing from others to give to others. To quote the lore for Hope's Hand, helping those most in need requires taking advantage of those in power, using subversive methods, lies, and legal loopholes. Hope's Hand operated across Eastern Europe in a limited capacity, providing guerrilla healthcare of varying quality to those who needed it most. Medical operations for the destitute, stolen food for the poor, clothing for the bearing. Those who committed to the cause had to find their resources through their own means, sometimes including theft. That was like a big part of it. I was like, I need to at some time in the season start stealing shit or be a bit of a klepto, especially if I want to run with this. You've been banned? No, I'm not banned. I'm just this was a report. Currently watching the stream history. This breakdown is very useful. Thank you very much. Hey, no problem, Swag. I'm glad getting something out of it. I was banned for one day. I got my warning out of this. I'm just kind of going over my point of view and like reflecting on it, you know. But yeah, a lot of it was like in-character decisions and just the climate of a server, like the RP given. There's no economy and stuff. So I really didn't feel that bad going into a base that, like, I didn't think it was a base. I thought it was like a stash, you know? A character last season, Luther, used to have a bunch of stashes around the map, and he used to do stuff like this. Except they weren't barricaded on the windows. It's just very specific shit. I feel like this whole form report and this situation can be stopped in the future by having, like, a claim base option, or at least, like, an offline function. So if nobody from the faction's offline, then the claim base is activated. But I don't know, maybe you can't get the coding to work. I get it. It can be rough, you know. Anyways, as I went inside, I noticed some loot, not much. I figured it was going to be a shop and assumed that this person's real base. Like, you know, I just went over it basically. I trust the admins. I got them their stuff back, and I got 24-hour ban. You know, it's not that bad. I just had to like refresh myself on the rules. And which I did, and like the thing is though, so that ends January 31st. That's resolved. February 2nd, another one. You know, their base is raided again. You know, somebody's taken their car and all this other shit. It's comical. It's so rough, you know? It's like a, I still don't know why someone would just take thread, so I'm sort of convinced that I might have misplaced it. Regardless, they're gonna freak out. Why can't we just get base claim? You know? And again, this player, they come in and they're like, super apologetic. They're like, I'm sorry, I had some stuff, like, RP, this is what happened, and like, yada yada. They admit to their fault. 24-hour ban. Bam. You know? Another situation. Offline raiding with high-calorie food. Opened up by a game master. I don't understand why this couldn't have just been a DM. This is such a silly report. But anyways, they had their food if somebody went into the spot that they were staying at, and then they left their bag there, and that was like only it, and they had so this person had their high calorie food taken. It's the same guy. Is that the same guy that raided Funky Egg? One sec. Poor bloke. No, wait. It is. Poor dude. Bro's in 2 different form reports in like 3 days. So he got a warning from this one, you know, and then the next one he got a 24-hour. How stressful though, and you could like, I won't read it all, but he's just like super apologetic. He's like, I'm sorry if I took more. I wasn't sure about this, you know. He's like, I was reading the rules and this is what I interpreted. It's just like warning and 1-day ban. So hopefully it doesn't happen next time. I think it's going to happen next season. More people are going to keep on doing it unless there's a better solution put into place. Either way, though, circling back to this, yeah, Kyle recently offline raided a base for everything it had and tried to plant a note framing someone. I think it's pretty reasonable, especially after like one of the admin players fucking sent me on that goose hunt quest with a poem. you know? If I told anyone I'm to die, if my guys get involved, etc., blah blah, I respected the RP and I tried to contribute to it, and in return I got nothing. Put it that way. I did like the Mission Impossible shit, like sneaking into someone's base, but I do that shit anyways. Like, why is a character that I don't know trying to interact with me on this fucking level? It was just very confusing. No RPs come from it, and that person's like burned out of a server, which it happens and shit. It's just disappointing. It was one of my main like points of criticism that I had in my like my feedback that I sent to them. Anyways, going forward, Felon says, while I don't have a dog in this fight, what Punk said is absolutely true. In addition to to what Aquila is saying, it's all on our minds here. I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers, and whatever people want to say about Vinegar or staff is above my pay grade. What I will say is that I question if continuing Season 16 is worth it due to the current player population and opportunities for roleplay. Even though I'm fortunate enough to be with a pretty good group of good role players, I can say that if you're a solo right now, you might as well stop playing. There's very little roleplay to be had, and barely anything enriching or meaningful. I know this from speaking to 3 people who have or currently are playing characters that weren't affiliated with a major faction. Outside of my group right now, it feels as though it's sort of a roleplay with the same people, and that tends to get stale after a while. This is only reinforced with issues outlined by Aquila, such as the metro, map, and clicks. And then Misu responds. So they say, my character this season was anti-Western, yeah. This wasn't the main driver for any of the RP that I did. The fist fight you mentioned with Oski, and it started, was because their character, Liz, accused Roxy of cutting her in line, then later called her a bitch. Liz could have been Western or Deprovian. Either way, Roxy would have started swinging. I don't know what you talk about when you say showdown with Natasha's. Roxy was caught sniffing around her belongings in her cell. She was told to get out, and she did. Maybe Crowstar can vouch for this, since they were present with Tasha's. It really had nothing to do with Slav versus West. Roxy and Black Banner, as far as I know, had nothing to do with Toxocat being exiled. It was actually Stroika that walked up to me in Chance Effect and informed us that she was no longer allowed in the community, and for us to immediately let them know if we see her. We didn't go searching the entire Western. We didn't go searching the entire map for Westerners, as he put it. We literally stumbled across the player while looting. And yes, we did engage in the only hostile RP either of us did this season. We'd been told by Stroika that she was an enemy. They didn't even specify the reason that she was Western. So again, hostile RP, yeah. But the hostile RP that makes sense. Last season, so they bring up the last season scene. Yes, I remember that scene. Here's the scene in question, actually, and since you brought it up, let's talk about how you completely metagamed it. The context is that prior to this, Zola, my character, drug dealer friends, tried to pressure Audrey, funky little egg, into trying drugs. Calvin flips out and bans Zola's friends from visiting her at her community center where she lives. Zola's friends wish to formally apologize to Calvin and Audrey, so I messaged Vinegar O'Seeley to see if he's online, available for that roleplay scene. He said he's ready, cool, I let the guys know, and they're on their way. This takes place before that scene and that YouTube video. Bear in mind, Calvin does not know O'Seeley that the friends are coming over. You can hear Zola inform him that they want to come and apologize. If you watch literally the first 10 seconds, you'll see Vinegar strokes Calvin and Aquila QC with guns, and Calvin says, oh, we're about to go out and practice shooting. This was a cover-up for the metagame, because I told Vinegar O'Seeley that these guys were coming over. He grabbed Aquila and they strapped up so they could be prepared for a shootout if the scene went that way. Just an interesting addition. Yeah, that's true, yeah, like a lot of dude, I had it last season where fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Yeah. I had it last season where, I pulled up outside of, players' bases, and, players that weren't online started to get online and get guns and get stuff ready. And just, load up and, wait. It's silly. It happens, though, it happens, intentionally or not. You get told RP's happening, and you get told you're about to get into a cool scene, so that's it, you gotta, it's time to like have your character wake up and get in it. I like it happens. It's just like yeah. Anyways, it's a little bit of back and forth negativity. Either way though, that's about the end of God is Dead for the most part. There's a couple more. I do want to read from Boot. I'm pretty new, but I have invested myself into the lore as so far as it stands so far. Perhaps things are in a compromising position in the eyes of many, but I myself have quite enjoyed the setting up to this point. I think a lack of general purpose / meaning suits a war-torn apocalyptic nation. I'm all for more meaningful, original set of NPC factions too, something to enable real motivations and intent on behalf of major narrative characters. I think stuff like that would make the provision of events a little easier, especially amongst players. I have felt this overall desire to be part of something. We as humans have always sought out something meaningful as a way to escape the abysmal mental labyrinths of desolate and depressing situations. I was also excited to carry out more antagonistic RP, but one stoked in the same fibers of introspection and true natural revolution to the new world. I would probably have to experience a lot more to reach the same sentiments as a few here, but I thought things on the server seemed promising, if not perhaps fully realized. I've had fun. Somebody liked their character, and like that's good. At least somebody was having a good time with the lore and everything. It was rough for a lot of Westerner characters. So what's that called? So then Punk, a retired staff and like veteran player, pitches in. And they say, I'm going to throw something out that I'm sure won't be comfortable for either side of a conflict. Mr. Strokes is a good friend of mine, as I'm sure a lot of people are aware. Vinegar has provided very good anti-ag roleplay for the people in the past. And as I've viewed it from both the receiving end as well as with him, I think he is more than capable of providing the upper echelon of what it means to antag, and do it in a manner that is enjoyed by both sides of a conflict. I could give you countless memories I have in both PZRP and elsewhere with Vinegar, where he was probably one of the most engaging people in an RP scene, providing amazing back and forths that didn't just amount to hands. It's why I believe him and I got along like a fat kid gets along with a carrot cake. You don't foster the community we've had without having a strong core identity of role players at its helm. Vinegar hopping into Misu's DMs to practically tell her that they were going to get steamrolled over an IC character conflict we ourselves perpetrated was not okay. It was needlessly toxic that only served to piss off a large portion of our community. And I think if Vinegar wants to throw shit, it's best to remember what he represents as a project lead on this server. Seeing that he is founder at the time of reading I think he understands that. That is not to say we should just forego setting up RP reasons to antag and just be a PvE server with a few extra steps. I was one of the most on board with the whole Neprovian nationalism arc to begin with. The server needs good hostile RP, and I believe Vinegar is one of the few people with enough experience to carry that out. The Rogue National Guard, Season 15, is a key example of this. However, forming an immediate doom stack to prepare for the eventual raw dogging of a server is and was not good for player mindsets, and a justified concern. We've done this charade before, and like 5 people can dominate the server if they simply commit to aim grinding and running loot spawns. The people of Shroika aren't staff aside from Vinegar himself, and when Vinegar was dealing with important IRL shit and had to take a week leave, there's hostilities that occurred between Shroika and others that were simply out of his control that began to directly reflect on him as a person since he was the lead. I think they're personally for I was there personally for the reaming he gave to the members who took part in the MSI conflict about playing like dumb PvP monkey idiots who only care about winning the conflict as opposed to roleplay. He very, very much cared about making Shroika a hostile force that prioritized roleplay while not straying from the fact that they were antagonistic. People don't see that side of hostile RP. How could they? We are only our actions I see, and everything leading up to this point has been standoffish and aggression against the other half of a player base. I agree with a lot of points made about issues in hostile RP, lore, and a stupid fucking permafrost, but Vinegar being some shitter who simply wants to win at the expense of his community is unfounded, and I'll fuck anybody who disagrees with that. So yeah, that there's one more. I don't know what's all been. So Keller says I don't know what's all been said. I kind of skimmed over it. But it seems like everybody's being a dead horse, so I want to get a couple good jabs at it too. All in all, I don't mind the map as much as I minded the gold standard lore faction of loot spawns. I've played on probably close to 24 RP servers, and I've seen them all make the same pitfall. Making players struggle does not promote RP. Having a grind is natural and makes sense. Making that grind a chore turns the game into a chore, which makes it not fun and promotes gear RP more than anything else. Players are more likely to RP when in-game resources are more abundant, because then they have the freedom to move around the map more without being worried about straining their extremely finite food or gear. I haven't even logged in 5 days purely because my character has only drank bottles of maple syrup and had half a bag of sugar left. That was my whole diet because food didn't exist. Where he's at the map is rough, yeah. It made me feel defeated to hear from everyone that despite searching for hours, we never found much food. I think my biggest turnoff was the gold standard event. We waited nearly 2 hours for 3 jobs the whole server was competing for. The most perilous and highest paying job only gave 20k rubles, which was only enough to buy a single box of nails. It felt incredibly insulting as a player to sell food to the gold standard, only 500 rubles for each can, and then be told to look at their price list and see a single box of nails costed so much. We could only sell 10 cans of food as well, so you would have needed to have 4 players combined for 5k to get 1 box of nails. It's wild, you know? Then I sat around for 2 hours waiting for a job that would only afford me that much. As soon as I heard that I stopped caring entirely, I feel that often a season's premise seems cool. There are good ideas. Fairly, it becomes arbitrary decisions that muddy the waters. I get wanting to make people struggle, but the amount of struggle just made the whole game feel like a waste of my day. I have many friends here who I respect deeply, but sometimes I gotta ask, what are y'all thinking when you plan stuff out? Here is to better days. I think we all learned a lot from this season. Yeah. So yeah, that is God is Dead. That's a big one. And there's still more. There's still more. It hasn't ended. Going on to the cancellation. I'm going to go and get a drink and stretch quick. I'll put on some fucking Donkey Kong tunes or something. But yeah, so essentially, like, I want to know what you guys think. Leave your opinions, especially if you played this season. If you're watching after the stream is up, then, you know, leave a comment. Because, yeah, like I said, I got a lot more to go through. I got a lot of just different points and things I'd like to talk about that I think would be worth talking about, you know? So yeah, that's the, like, plan, at least right now. You put on Donkey Kong music. Alright, be right back. Alright. Back. Alright, back to hell. We're in hell now. Season 16, cancellation and retrospective. So this was posted 13 hours ago. At around like 8 p.m. after that second thread. I believe after that second thread, I could be wrong. Hi PZRP, it's time to level. This is coming from one of the developers named Kate. So they said, as you may have noticed, player activity has dropped severely since the end of launch scenario a couple weeks ago. While every season sees fall off in that time period, this has been one of the fastest declines we've ever experienced as a server. Taken together with the feedback we've received, it tells us that something we're doing is wrong and we need to refocus. The PZRP community has experienced other seasons that went wrong and required us to intervene early, like seasons 11 and 14, but this was a particularly outrageous false start. We want to engage with the player base honestly and share some of the reasons we've identified, as well as the ways we'll be acting to remedy those issues going forward. So number one, the map problems. This season was flawed in several ways. Some of these we identified pre-season, but thought we could muddle through for the sake of delivering a unique experience to players. Others caught us by surprise, like buildings full of high-tier supplies not marked on the overworld map, or towns where loot respawns didn't work. A Project Russia mod is an ambitious overhaul in an unstable state, and it also broke a number of other items and crafting recipes. Going forward, we will take much greater caution about centering any season premise on a large modded map in an alpha state. We'll devote more effort to QA testing the map before launch, in particular ensuring that QA isn't just one person's responsibility. So yeah, might be good to have like admins or more players to stress test these types of things. But going on to reason 2. Arbitrary difficulty. This season, we sought to deliver a more hardcore experience through features like the cryogenic winter, the longer and more disconnected sewer systems, the removal of easy ways to transport gasoline, high sprinter populations in downtown areas, limited nail crafting, etc. None of these sound fun so far. While these features appealed to some people, they had an overall negative effect on the average player experience, and especially on new players. Going forward, we remain committed to depicting a level of difficulty and scarcity because this is a game about the zombie apocalypse. However, we will strive to make sure Any difficulty changes feel challenging rather than tedious, and don't make the new player experience overwhelming. Where possible, we will strive to let players select their difficulty by choosing to take greater risks for greater rewards. Reason 3, the struggle to find RP. We felt that the Season 15 map was a little too small and didn't leave players room to breathe or go off on their own, so we attempted to compensate with a large play area this season. Additionally, to prevent fast travel from trivializing the cryogenic winter mechanics, we made travel via sewer metro more time consuming. However, ultimately, both of these were overcorrections and left people unable to easily find RP. As we learned in Season 11, a large play area is counterproductive if it spreads the player base out so far that they can't interact with each other. This hits hardest for new players, who have been wandering around aimlessly before they can even find other people to interact with. Another misstep here was the emphasis this season on language barriers. While appropriate for the setting, this again made RP difficult and exclusionary, especially for newer, more casual players unaware of how to get language permissions. Going forward, we'll make sure players can always travel the map in a reasonable amount of time. A small map is fine, a large map with easy, fast travel is fine, but we'll avoid maps where traveling across them is so time-consuming that it gets in the way of RP. We want to encourage RP hubs where people can mingle and new players can introduce themselves. We'll avoid seasonal mechanics that put up arbitrary barriers in the way of player interaction. Reason 4, storyline disconnect. While we were proud of the lore for this season and elated to see how players ran with it with their character backstories, we had difficulty translating that into an actionable arc plot or regular events. Players were left feeling confused on what the season would be about. Is it a murder mystery? Is it about conflicting factions? Is it about the zombies or the winter? How can players interact with any of those? Truthfully, even we launched without being fully sure. The cool elements that people planned around were often were stuck off screen, and events never materialized for most factions. Going forward, we'll be rethinking how we develop seasons. When a season is pitched, we want to start by planning the specific gameplay elements that players will feel and the specific events that will push the storyline forward. Only once we feel confident in a set of events and a play experience will we move on to the more fluffy background writing. Additionally, we'll be biting off more than we can chew in terms of elaborate plots or faction dynamics that we aren't prepared to run with in-game. Okay, and then number 5, communication. Over time, communication both inside staff and between staff and players has become soiled. Teams on staff feel like they can't speak up about it. Teams on staff feel like they can't speak up about issues they're seeing, or like those issues are swept under the rugs. Players who open feedback tickets might get some response, but rarely any idea of how it's being talked about or what, if anything, is changed as a result of them. People feel like when they raise an issue, it's not going to be addressed for months, if at all. Going forward, we'll be making efforts to return to a regular cadence of staff meetings where there are chances at least a few times per season to check in and share thoughts across the team. We'll develop a system for handling feedback similarly to player reports. We want to reduce the amount of crosstalk and bickering in those feedback posts and deliver an official statement on what we think of a feedback and how we'll be taking it into consideration in the future. Given the issues above and the level of disengagement we've seen as a result of them, we decided to call an early stop to Season 16. Some of these problems can't be easily fixed with our current map and lore, and we want to deliver a season that many players can enjoy. Instead of trying to salvage one that's already turned a lot of people off, Season 16 will close out at the end of a day on February 12th. That's 2 days from now. Staff have been in discussions about how to quickly get a better experience out to the players. However, if a consensus is that the player base would rather see us take time to refine our systems before launching again, we're willing to consider that as well. A poll will be placed out soon on this topic. In the meantime, let me say in the clearest possible terms, we're sorry and we'll strive to do better for our players. Ending a season like this is not normal and not something that we enjoy, given how it cuts short the character arcs that people have invested weeks into. We hope that we can rebuild your trust and prove that the server we love is worth giving another chance. We want to hear from you on how to improve PZRP, and then like a Google form, which I think is a way better solution than like player reports and stuff like this, just because it becomes drama. Like I said with my report, it's like immediately, it's funny at least on mine. It's like right away they're like, it was fucking Croc. I knew it was that bastard, you know. But it ruins RP opportunities. It makes stuff more clicky. It makes stuff like, ooh, that person's in trouble for this reason or whatever, blah blah, or they're stirring up a storm again in the feedback form, you know. Anyways, what's it called? The next post, not God is Dead. Redirecting the conversation and staff feedback. Let's go to the first. This was posted 14 hours ago, so a bit before the season was canceled for sure. So this is posted by Chance Effect. And he says, it seems like there has been a good deal of critique of staff in God is Dead form, which was intended to discuss the lore and gameplay aspects of Season 16. How about we keep things to their appropriate forms and continue discussion and feedback of staff here? I know that many are passionate on the subject, i.e. ToggleCat, me, Sue, myself, etc., so I'd love to hear their constructive and critical takes on the way that the server is being run. That being said, here's my take on things. Project leads and responsibility. To my knowledge, the setting for Season 16 was an executive decision made by Vinegar, which was accepted and passed along by Cacti and Monkey Man down to the rest of staff. Any issues with map balancing, world building, constraints, map size, loot spawns, culture, confusion, etc., which were caused by the choice of setting, and that the responsibility falls upon those who had the ability to speak up about it. Absolutely to their credit, Vinegar and Monkey Man both acknowledged this. I think that their responses to Aquila in the God is Dead form were humble and respectful. However, I believe the most important thing to think about at this point is how the fact that this was an executive decision rather than one made by the collective. The apparent hastiness and insistence on part of senior staff leads me to believe there is an open and equal discussion. Were there an open and equal discussion about Season 16 setting between all staff before an executive decision was made, these issues might have been avoided. Further levying responsibility and the bald-faced ominosity against junior staff who appear to really be doing just what they are asked to, world building around a setting which they did not elect, is pretty appalling. Again, responsibility for how the server is run falls on the shoulders of project leads. If a project lead has a problem with how lore is being run or developed, that's not something they should keep to themselves or private discussions. I'm sure the lore folks would love direction and opportunities to improve. Project leads' behavior and gameplay is extremely important. I'd like to know what the protocol is on keeping project leads in check in regards to their activities in game, because unfortunately that has become necessary. Last season, Vinegar spawned his IC character, a car which was proven to be invincible. In addition, just this season, Vinegar spawned his faction a full 800 capacity gas container, with the explanation that fuel pumps were glitched and should contain that amount later. I can't imagine that Vinegar doesn't understand that advantaging his own faction in this way is an appropriate response to the problem, which was shared by everyone on the entire server. So while I'm going to the pump and I'm like, damn, I'm fried. You know, it's like if you get there and you have a project lead in your team, then they're like, oh, don't worry, I'll do some mod shit, I'll do some admin stuff, and I'll get us figured out, you know? On a similar note, after Winter stepped down from staff due to her guilty verdict in a player report, she was reinstated to staff after returning to the server for Season 16 with no application. To be clear, I think Winter is an excellent staff member, and I'm glad to see her back, and I hold no ill will towards her. That being said, how does this incentivize admin abusing staff to not do it again? Vinegar's behavior in his staff toxicity report, as another example, would absolutely not fly if anyone else had done it. The intentional escalation and inflammation of a situation was not met with any public disavowalment by his fellow senior staff, which left many people extremely displeased with the outcome, even though I do agree with Vinegar's side of the original debate. My question to senior staff is this: how can this be prevented moving forward? How will staff be held responsible for their actions? What can the community do to support you? And yeah, I totally agree. I've had a lot of people mention to me winter being reinstated, because like they didn't play much last season. They crashed the fuck out. They stopped playing. And they're a game master again. And I'm sure they've done great things before in other seasons. But what are they doing going towards the future? You know, I didn't learn what that was. Nobody else learned what that was. There wasn't a public apology. There wasn't a, hey, here's my why I'm coming back or anything. Like, I understand, like, you need tile pickers, you need like lore team members, you need staff and shit. This felt very much like friends missed her or them, you know? Sorry. It's just like it's very silly stuff, you know? Oh, Etzo's back as admin, I think. Anyways, like, what I would like to see is just like when stuff like that happens, it's like, hey, here's our staff member and here's like their explanation for why they're in this position. Because I don't know them from season 14 and prior. I came here in season 15, and all I know them for is like really ripping up my clothes, you know? Like, and like I can get past that. It's like I'm not gonna be petty about it. But a lot of people have mentioned to me, you know, how like it's kind of fucked up, you know? They stop for the season and then they're back as like a, you know, head staff or whatever. So that's huge concern. I totally agree there, and I'd like to see that addressed. Player experience and staff philosophy. I'm sure that all of us can agree we're here to have fun, socialize, and create stories together. These are the key tenets to RP which keep everyone engaged and happy with the server. In my time experiencing this server, I've faced numerous times with question of whether these things are priority at the forefront mind of staff. Here's an example. When I submitted a demolition ticket to clean up an auto shop, one of my fellow players on the ticket asked if he could get some spare tires for destroying a spare tire tile in the shop. The staff handling this said in response that maybe, just maybe, if he wrote a Harvard-level essay, they might be given one rubber scrap. Why did they feel the need to do this? A player tries to be creative about their otherwise boring ticket, and when given a chance to reward a player for their creativity, they're met with skepticism. Very true. Very true. A lot of tickets end up like that, and it's unfortunate. It makes people not want to open up tickets compared to having like a good positive interaction back and forth. I doubt that giving this player a spare tire or two would have broken the balance of a server. That's real. When members of Elysium try to create a restaurant on water using barrows to keep the thing afloat, they were told by staff that this was unrealistic and a big ask. For reference, restaurants on the water are a thing that exists in real life. Even if they didn't, would this build have destroyed someone's immersion, ruined the server for them, or have caused them any sort of problems in player experience? No. I'm pretty baffled by decisions like this, which appear to only shut down creativity. Very true. In this approach and philosophy that appears to often be taken by some members of staff that leads players to not try new things, open tickets, or generally engage with the world in a way that they couldn't otherwise in a solo game. The attitude that staff ought to have towards players is a cooperative one, not dissimilar to TTRPGs like D&D. When a player is trying to do something, ask yourself, is it driven by mechanical interest rather than roleplay and storytelling? Would it give them significant unfair advantage? Does it not vibe with the setting or lore? If not, support players in having fun. I'm sure there are many more examples of this which which don't immediately come to mind, but I encourage others to share their experiences in replies for some further constructive discussion. With all that being said, my goal here is not to get back at someone who has wronged me or to bring justice to any individuals or groups. My goal is to share what I feel could make the server a better place for everyone and to encourage cooperative growth between staff and community. I care about this place. It would break my heart to see things continue down this downward spiral. There needs to be significant changes from the top to bottom to keep the server healthy. The way that things are going now is not sustainable, and I'd love to contribute to change in any way that staff and the community at large would deem constructive to that goal. I recognize that I might not be privy to all the most important information on these subjects, and I encourage people to kindly inform me of anything I may be wrong or otherwise contribute to the points of discussion. Please do use this space as a civil forum for constructive critique of staff specifically. Now is the time to get whatever you've been keeping to yourself or holding resentment out there in a positive way. Take this chance while we have it. Heart, Chance. Thank you, Chance. Yeah, no, this is like really well said. It's very like straightforward. The points brought up are very fair, you know. Vinegar responded, barrels only contain 800 gas, not 10,000. As I explained, this was the case until gas stations were restored. This was mainly due to the change made by map condensing, and I did inform others in the voice chat that gas was on the roof and also staff about this. Once the gas stations were restored, the barrel was deleted. Not to mention, we ourselves had a barrel with about 300 units of gas. Just an FYI, the gas stations hadn't all been fixed. I think the one in Nagorie, or WE, the fuck it's called, is still out, and the ones east of it. In the meantime, I've spawned gas barrels in for people in my faction. If you need cords, I could get them for you next time you log in. I'm only choosing to respond to this because I feel like this is a strong accusation of admin abuse, and I just wanted to offer an explanation for it. Vanilla fuel pumps contain 10k normally, however, Project Russia pumps only contain 1,000. Not surely why this was explained to Misu. It was brought to my attention, they were questioning it. Okay, well, the thing is like, me as a player, I wouldn't be able to spawn in, or if I opened up a ticket, chances are they probably wouldn't spawn this shit in for me, you know? What's it called? It's rough. It's like, I don't know, like, it's fair though. Anyways, I do want to, like, skim through, because I haven't seen, this is all new stuff. Wow. There's quite a lot. Alright, let me get Donkey Kong music. I'll be back. I gotta think for a moment. I gotta reflect. Gotta reflect before I go in this. Alright, I'm back. Should be my last little break there. So, going into the responses. For the Elysium ticket with the restaurant on water, Vinegar says, I was a pretty big supporter of this of a ticket, was submitted in any events Elysium ran in general. Felt like they helped the world feel alive and participated in every event bearing the Halloween one, just because I didn't want to be overstimulated by VC. I tend to agree player creativity should be rewarded. So that's why what's it called? Like so he was like on our side about it. He puts his knowledge from a matter. I appreciate you clarifying this. Essentially, I don't believe that swapping to admin to give yourself anything is ever acceptable. Especially since your approach informing others was not whether you should do it or not, but doing it and then informing everyone after it was done. Yeah, it reminds me of when Winter broke down our wall and stuff and like went into admin mode to break it. So like instead of if I wanted to break that wall, I would need to submit a ticket, do some RP, write out a fucking Harvard essay, you know, in order to get that done. They can just go into admin mode because they did some cool stuff a few seasons ago, you know? Like I don't get it either, and it's not really fair to players, it's not fair to anyone. I think transparency is a big issue. Decisions often aren't communicated clearly. If staff punishments occur for such things as Winter's actions, nothing really against them, just what comes to mind. I believe staff should be more transparent in their reasoning and resolution. Additionally, decision making in general, simply put, isn't transparent. The perma ban list in Discord is good, but often ambiguous or unclear. Balancing changes often aren't even revealed until the season begins, or if a decision is already made/implemented, which doesn't leave any time for feedback. I can't really put the words together at the moment, but transparency is good. Being clear and looking for community feedback/inputs is beneficial to the overall product and community health. I don't think my text was misleading, though. I did exactly what I said and then deleted it as soon as Lepsy restored the gas station. Our faction or group was predominantly affected by large-scale faction moves, so yes, I put it there for us all. Misleading would mean I had some sort of malicious intent. I just don't think that constitutes that. I do appreciate you correcting yourself, but I guess I don't appreciate the weird witch hunt. Edit, I would also like to push back of a narrative of a barrel was empty or totally used. I spoke to C. Fauzi and saw the barrel. He was one that brought it my attention. Okay, so and then he says staff agrees with the decision making aren't that transparent. Then Straub comes in and says, "Hi, I agree transparency is a big issue. Blanca in today's meeting pushed for feedback polls to be reintroduced after my predecessors ate at Crunch, and we agreed. So we'll try to use it often going forward. I'll also try and push for a patch notes and development to be clearer. Should they contain spoilers, make non-spoilery post once the season is out, etc. Now onto the thing Vinegar mentions, but with bans, I'll talk about it since it was my idea and I'll be handle it. I've been unfortunately unable to implement it yet due to a lack of bans. The latest one was very cut and dry. Going forward, once a perma ban entry is made, it will be followed by a post on the forums explaining the situation in greater detail as to avoid any rumors/lies/one-sided views, help with transparency, and just overall help with server health. So yeah, this is good because usually when someone gets banned, it can be like a simple reason or it can be like a very like targeted reason, or you know, people just look at it in different ways and then it leads to like rumor mill shit instead of like truth. I love this server and I've always believed to be someone who strives to be transparent about things we do, but don't always give a chance to. So I hope what I said here will restore some faith in a staff team. And no, that sounds really good. Like I think they elaborated on bans that would help out a lot. And the cheating. Bad cop here. Here's the context and objective truth on a gosh darn gas barrel. When the gas stations were dry due to RP pump, Due to Project Russia pumps having much lower gas unit cap than vanilla pumps, Vinegar spawned in a full gas barrel for himself and his faction to use to get them through until the admins fix the gas stations. He claims his reasons for this are 1, it's not cheating because eventually everyone will have gas again when the admins fix this. 2, C-Files already had half barrel full of gas and I just replaced it. I'll address 1. First, it's still cheating. Vinegar hopped on admin and spawned in gas for himself and his faction, where the rest of the player base had to go without. Why didn't everybody get a gas barrel? It wouldn't have mattered if a gas pump fix came 5 minutes later. He still admin abused and cheated and stuff for him to and his buddies. 2. This half barrel of gas Vinegar refers to no longer existed at the time that Vinegar cheated. It was emptied into the working vehicles that were used to transport a faction's vehicles out of Cherno, when we discovered the town was getting cut from a map. I know this because I was the one that did that. Those gas barrels were managed by me as the second mechanic in that workshop. And the gag is, it doesn't even matter, because even if there was half barrel, he still cheated by giving himself double the amount. Why is Vinegar swapping to admin to give himself anything ever? This isn't the first time Vinegar has been caught admin abusing. It isn't speculation or accusation. He does that shit. And you know what? The issue isn't even the gas anymore. It's that he will not take accountability for it. His 2 replies to Chance above address everything, but the core of Chance's point that he gave himself an unfair advantage, even if it was temporary, same way he did in the other thread. He got caught in his misconduct. He becomes dismissive, cherry picks one part of a post he finds approachable, and only responds to that, and starts throwing in the laughing emojis because he doesn't take the shit serious. Huge L. He still admin abused and cheated it stuff in for him and his buddies. This is actually true, although not for my buddies. I did it for Misu. I spawned her in some starting clothing and rationalized it that she was my friend and had Brawler, and shouldn't have to wait for Donor Shop to take advantage of it, and she asked me very politely. I'm actually sorry for this and do expect any punitive measures that will be levied at me, because I realize that all donors don't have friends on staff that are able to take advantage of this. Although, without naming names on staff, I do know of several others who have done this. In hindsight, I'm sorry for the larger player base. When it comes to starting gear for other players, I think everyone in the Discord can attest to how frustrated I was being constantly pestered for admin help while trying to roleplay, laughing my ass off. I crashed out and left VC several times because of it. I do switch between my admin account on PC. Why? Because logs are easily trackable, and it's very easy to get caught abusing permissions, both in the game logs and Discord logs. We literally have a logs channel for staff to monitor, admin permissions, and unauthorized access. Using a console to temporarily grant myself permissions makes handling requests and tickets much more efficient. I can turn them on, resolve the issue, and then disable them immediately afterwards. For example, during the move to Cherno, I had to assist over 15 player, handling all their requests while constantly logging off. Switching to my staff account, managing their issues, then repeating the process would have been extremely tedious and impractical. As for a barrel, it was there for maybe half a day. It wasn't even used when I deleted it. It was still at like 700 units of oil. It was simply meant to help people fill their cars or generators. Making the move easier for them given the gas station right next to us was totally tapped at it. Because of this, contextually, and the fact that reimbursements have been made to other factions who moved, I do not believe that spawning in gas barrels was wrong, or would I have hidden it from my peers. Additionally, I told relevant staff members about it. If I thought it were wrong, I wouldn't have been transparent about it. Once the gas station was restored, the barrel was immediately poofed. So, yeah, this is a lot. We're getting into it, though. We're getting through it. Hi, Vinegar. So Misa responds, hi, Hi, Vinegar. Because your response is full of details irrelevant to the topic, classic, and still fails to address your behavior, I'm going to make an attempt to lay it out straight in the hopes you'll respond directly. Do you think spawning in a gas barrel for your faction, regardless of how long it existed / how long the gas was used for, was fair? And then Chance says, Vinegar did spawn in clothing for his buddies, myself included. He also informed me that he had been performing the same services forever, saying not my buddies was a direct lie. The clothing spawn is not the point here. I don't believe the rest of what Vinegar speaks on here does not have any bearing to the original post or discussion I wish to facilitate. His responses were not properly addressed the problematic nature of spawning in items for his faction. Being frustrated is not an excuse to give you and your faction unfair advantages over others who did not have the luxury of having project lead on their team and break protocol, which I say as one who has benefited from his actions. I would encourage other staff such as Monkey Man and Cacti and members of junior staff who care about the situation to share their perspective on Vinegar's history and whether it meets the criteria for admin abuse, because I believe the general public response has been made clear and the community doesn't approve of his actions. I would also be interested in an investigation into the logs to verify the validity of this and other claims, as is normally done when a staff member is accused of admin abuse. I would suggest that Vinegar takes a moment to create a structured response to my original post, because I don't see this back and forth going anywhere constructive. If anyone else has further context for these events or other accusations on abuse of admin on Vinegar, I'd urge you to do so now. I'm tired of resentment building up, rumors piling up on one another, etc. A witch hunt is exactly what I intend to avoid by creating an open discussion such as this. So I do take some offense to the accusation that my intent is malicious in any way. This is not a Vinegar call-out post. This is intended to be a comprehensive critique of how staff runs a server and a facilitation for engagement with staff and the larger community of a server. In direct response to Chance's original post, where we should keep a focus, this post hits the nail on the head when it comes to what people need to change. Every issue traces back to a lack of discussion and accountability from the top. The way things are being run isn't sustainable, and if leadership doesn't start valuing player feedback, the player base will keep shrinking. Chance's post isn't a call-out, it's a genuine push for improvement, and that's something staff should take seriously if they care about the future of the community. So Van Blanca says, I literally find this counterintuitive to begin the healing process of a shithole that what Season 16 was. Everyone made mistakes in staff team, and it seems like this conversation is rather shifting blame on Vinegar since getting extra dip from him wasn't an issue. But I digress. You know that I consider you a friend. I consider you as a friend, and so I do Misu. But Vinegar has already resigned, and the season is ending in 2 to 3 days. There's quite frankly no point of this bashing happening in here. I think what would be best for all is for us to take a breather, because from all the seasons I've been in, this season has been the worst case of toxicity. And I won't really defend myself saying that I was a saint, because it got to me too real bad. It got everyone. Let's just cut our losses and stop, because it doesn't provide anything positive to the community by continuing this conversation. And it's unfortunate, yeah. Like, it's not a Vinegar call-out post, it's just being turned into that. Yo, what's good, Mr. Mediocre? But yeah. Like I said, this is not a Vinegar call-out post. This is intended to be a comprehensive critique of how staff runs the server, and a facilitation for engagement with staff and the larger community of a server. I feel that the conversation was sort of hijacked by the back and forth that I did not want. I'd like to see a response to the points that I originally put forward from a staff team and the community at large. As I try to state per my last post, I do not wish Vinegar's conversation to continue. I'm still interested in responses of Monkey Man and Cacti only because how they approach the topic informs the community of their approach to keeping staff responsible for their actions as senior staff. I don't want to cease all discussion of the mistakes made this season just because it's uncomfortable. If we don't engage with this, things won't change. History will repeat itself. I don't think that asking me to stop trying to have an open discussion about staff behavior as an whole will be productive to making next season better for everyone. Everything is not resolved now that Vinegar has stepped down. Vinegar's actions alone were not what led to the outcome for Season 16. Lucky Tank, Otto, guy in my... I forgot, I haven't left Spiffo on anything in a while. I like his. I agree with the community as a whole needing to take a breather. Certain issues notwithstanding, we need each other to continue to not only have a player base, but also a fairly inclusive community of folks with a shared interest in Zomboid and RP. Sometimes it can be easy to write each other off as a username on a screen and not an actual human being, staff and players alike. I think it'd be very beneficial to definitely note issues that involve others in a civil manner, and to take note of a good that even a failed season has brought to the table. I look forward to next season and seeing y'all again then. Um, so anyways, Blanca then says, I'm not saying that you meant for this to happen, but it did. And I already have spent 5 hours in admin chat text today, and we've had a 2-hour staff meeting VC today to air out the bad feelings of the community and forums. Kate has condensed everything and made a post to reflect topics that we were going to talk about, and did talk about every single one and some other more in-depth talks about how we manage things and what we as staff team could do better. I can assure that personally, I do feel hopefully after the talk, I always gonna prioritize players' engagement and enjoyment. I've already talked about with staff team pretty much everything that you have listed, and if I have not the staff team that were present in my crazy woman pulling out her hair out mumbles, then correct me here. In the 5 hours of me airing things out, I managed to remember about the things players are unhappy about. And I always told to everyone, if you don't feel comfortable approaching staff themselves, tell it to me because I'll bring it up. But rather, not much of me was asked. So I'll repeat it here for anyone reading this. If you do have any issues with anyone, my DMs are always open, and I'm glad to take feedback and relay it and discuss it. Because I care so much about this community, and I do have a deep passion to keep it alive. I love every single person in here, and even if we never interacted. And yeah, I feel that. And yeah, Blanca's a good member of a community. And that's what I mean. Like, a lot of people are like trying their best, but there's only like, what can you do at a certain point? You know, how much can you like really try, without it just getting like too crazy and shit. Going back to it, yeah. Cacti responds. In all seriousness though, we spawned a lot of gasoline over the last week or so to help people move. After we closed half of the map, because the map was huge and broken. It is perhaps technically improper that Vinegar spawned that particular gasoline for his faction instead of asking another staff member to come on and do it. Yes, sure, absolutely. Is it worth, I don't know what, extra firing him on top of his resignation? The gas would have got spawned anyways. It wasn't an unfair advantage. Anyone who was moving because of a map closures was getting gas comps. So no, the gas didn't strike me as particularly abusive. And yeah, that's fair. It was... The map cutoff was a huge fuck over too. I feel like the breaking down the wall is like a better close off scenario that at least I know of, and that Chance was a part of, and a lot of people were a part of. Then Taco Cat says, okay, that makes sense. Improper, yes, but not admin abuse. The message I was getting was that Vinegar spawned in the gas for his group while no one else on the server received gas. I would comment on Vinegar again, but to be honest, there's no point in beating a dead horse after someone's already shot it. Improper but not abusive is about as accurate a description of Vinegar strokes as I think I've ever heard. Let's just say, so now we got some more input from other members of the community. Ghost comes in. As an active player for many seasons, I love this community. Everyone is so passionate about their characters, the lore, and the world that we come together to build up from this shitty video game. That is why it's so hard to see what a few bad apples have done to sour the experience for so many players, including myself. As an active player, I understand and appreciate everything staff does to breathe life into a game that I love, but unfortunately, Season 16 was over for me before it even began. I can't comment on how this season's mechanics, on this season's mechanics, but I can comment on staff's attitudes towards players as a whole. Not only are some staff openly rude to players, but they are also rude to their fellow staff, to the point where it's made multiple drop out of a server entirely. I'm in no way demonizing all staff. but it's become apparent that a select few have prioritized protecting one another over server health. For me, the season was over the moment I read the staff toxicity forum post, which on both sides became incredibly hostile, and on the staff side became extremely dismissive. I won't reopen the issue, but it's safe to say that I was not surprised by the outcome or lack of in that instance. It's unfortunately left a very bad taste in my mouth and killed any hype I had previously for the season. As a player that's sunk an obscene amount of hours into the server, it's just sad. Players have consistently tried to feel heard, which is why for Season 14 I became a community rep. I thought as a community rep I would be the voice for players who otherwise don't feel comfortable coming to senior staff. Unfortunately, I can say the dismissiveness was present, even when having a title. A player would bring me issues, and instead of being met with a discussion, I'd be told why this isn't an issue, and to relay a nothing burger to the player who brought it up. I'd find myself arguing on players' behalfs and being met with nothing substantial. I am in no way claiming this is the average experience, just what I experienced personally. Not everything needs to be a problem, but player feedback should always be met with care. Actions have consequences, yes, we are all human, and people are allowed to make mistakes. I've made my fair share, but when you're running a community as big as this one, you need to be aware of your PR. Senior staff has a very bad reputation for this reason. Of course, we could always say, leave it if we don't like it, but for many of us, such as myself, this community is where we've made our friends. This community is our escape, and we don't want to see it fail. I think the feedback polls is a small step in a good direction. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but maybe we should all remember that at the end of the day, staff are players just like us, and as frustrating as it is for us, it must be even more frustrating to them. We can point out fingers and argue all we want, but it's not productive to the state of a server. I'm glad action is taken, but if things are going to change, we all need to treat one another with more respect and hold one another to the same standards, staff and players alike. Thank you, Chance, for bringing this up. Lepsy then says, I would like to add that in these times as senior staff, when you have to use your discretion, we had a situation where a large number of very active players had to move their base entirely because of a mistake on our end. The map being too large, we also discovered that the gas stations were too small around the same time and were empty astonishingly early. We were attempting to fix both problems at once. Here's the thing, if a staff situation forced players to have upend their entire base and move to a location, then yes, I think it's appropriate for admins to step in and help them, as we did for most groups moving. That covers a wide variety of things to try and get them up to speed with everything else. Nazarovo pumps bugged out after they were first replaced for whatever reason. You couldn't take fuel from them despite debug saying they contained fuel. Groups that had moved to Nazarovo and had to use their gas in doing so were therefore at a disadvantage to groups who had moved to other towns, wherever replacements were working. In that scenario, yes, the technically proper way to fix it is to run a ticket so we have archive, etc., but ultimately, on the ground, you have players who are having to deal with a massive inconvenience because of us. And then on top of that, something else we tried to fix broke, making it even harder. No gas where there was meant to be gas means no fuel for generator not running, meaning food goes off, etc., etc. So yes, in that scenario, I would absolutely stand by spawning a temporary stop gas, or to stop people's food going rotting. As noted, gas was spawned for a lot of groups, and the pumps were replaced in every location. We knew that they ran out. This is where senior staff discretion on making these calls is very important, and I would have approved of it being made for any group. So then Chance says, that's great. I'm glad to hear the gas issue cleared up. I can entirely understand why he'd do that if others are also getting free gas. To tie things back to the original intent of my post, there's clearly been a strong response to the way the server has been run. How do you plan to change the way staff management how do you plan to change the way you handle staff management to accommodate these concerns? Do you see the claims of favoritism or inconsistent repercussions for different staff members as holding any water? Do you have anything to comment on for any part of the player experience and staff philosophy? And Diaz comes in, he's a founder. Hi, Diaz here. I have decided to chime in on the specific section of a feedback. While I think it's insightful, I would like to explain the nature of why things are in that specific way. So this is about why the demolition ticket didn't work. Yes, we are here to have fun and socialize and to create stories, and I personally do enjoy when players try to think of creative ways to interact with the world and their surroundings. We see this much more in lore tickets, when the players literally decide how they want to go about the story, than game mechanic tickets. Why? Let me tell you, and I'll use specific examples he given. So he talks about a person not being able to get the tires. So I do not particularly remember this ticket happening, but I can imagine how it went. The reason why staff asked him to write detailed emotes, I doubt they asked for more than 2 paragraphs, lol, at least I hope, is because allowing people to destroy game tiles for mechanical items is likely going to turn into a slippery slope for an incredible amount of staff work. Because if we allow that to be done with no emotes or just a routine ticket, tomorrow we're going to have another ticket where someone asks if they can dismantle the post that lifts in a mechanic shop for iron. Then we'll have someone else asking if they can dismantle every single barbed wire fence so that they can get the wire. Or if they build an actual bridge from scratch to get over the river, yes, someone asked for it in Seasons 13. And to all these examples, which are things that players have actually asked, we've said no to very little of them. All that we ask is that players who wish to perform such actions at least put some effort on their end and tell us how they would go about it. Give us amount of RP for it, maybe sacrifice some materials. The reality is, all these tickets already take up a lot of staff oversight and time, and we're players too. We want to play the game. Sometime during Season 17, I'll post how many tickets we get a day just for reference. We have a team of volunteers that are all on call, ready to TP someone who got Rev RP'd, demolish an entire fence for players to plan bases, exchange 6 gray cans of paint for 3 cans of teal, or spend a few hours to figure out why the bathroom of the second story of your base isn't considered indoors. We have an entire Excel sheet of custom recipes so that players can craft paintbrushes, craft salt from the ocean, or make cheese. The sheet has 64 custom recipes and counting, as more are added every season. Without exaggerating, there are thousands of hours that staff put in to make sure that the world is interactive and players have a lot of options to express themselves creatively. So I don't think it's unfair that we ask players to put in effort and investigate RP when they want to. Because if we didn't, yeah, it'd be a lot of work. And then he responds about the Elysium ticket making restaurant. I remember this, lol, and I'm going to preface it by saying I was the main advocate for this not happening, and the reason was I was a cranky dickhead, laughing my ass off. I remember reading a request, and my initial thoughts were like, if I say yes to this, tomorrow someone's going to ask me to build a mega base underwater and tell me that if I put the Aztecs, if Aztecs built a city on the lake, why couldn't they? That was the first thing that crossed my mind, so when I said no, but when I referred to the rest of staff, I particularly remembered Etherobox or someone in junior staff telling me that she thought I was indeed being an insufferable asshole, so I spoke to Misu and we reached a compromise for her to build half of her restaurant on the water, or it was Juby. But yeah, staff are people, we make mistakes and are not perfect. I definitely could have been more open to the restaurant on a water idea, but at the same time, I stand by the fact that it's a very easy, slippery slope for people asking more and more staff-intensive things that could take away more of their time. That is also a balance aspect that a lot of players gloss over. As Game Master, former game master, a main concern of mine was to make sure that staff did not burn out from the many tickets we got in a day. Yeah, it's fair enough. Yeah, I'm at work without my headphone, but big ups to the Crocodile Report. Hey, thank you, Coyote. I see you, dude. I see you, bro. Yeah, man. I'm hoping next season I can do some newspapers. I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later, but there's things as a player I want to do to try to make the community as cool as possible, and really give it my all next season. Anyways, yeah, back to this. Merce pops in, retired staff. I was in a faction with Merce last season. They're pretty cool and fair. So let's read this. What's up, homies? I'm not dead. After reading through this thread and a few others, I decided I want to take some time to add to the conversation, particularly as an ex-staff member and how I feel things can be handled better both within staff and how staff communicates with a player base. As most everyone knows, I departed from senior staff in the weeks prior to season 16 quite suddenly and without giving much reasoning. Here's the factors to uh here's the factors that led to my leave. IRL reasoning, which I won't go into, discrepancy between myself and other staff members or staff or and other members of staff, feeling isolated within staff/staff clique, and fairness. Number one, obviously played a huge factor into why I left, but 2, 3, and 4 also contributed a significant amount of IRL stress, which also resulted in my abrupt leave. 2, everyone on staff within PZRP has different thoughts and feelings on about the way things should be, and that's okay. However, what's not okay is the way staff goes about it. I'll be transparent with the community. Senior staff works like a democracy most of the time. Most being the key word there. Even as high-level staff member, I felt like my voice didn't always carry a lot of weight because the project leads could always veto whatever they wanted. Please correct me if you think I'm wrong, but this is my experience. An example, I posted an announcement about languages that had been approved by 3 staff members, including the head LM. As it had approved, I went ahead and posted it. A bit afterwards, I received a DM from Vinegar, who very much disagreed with the announcement, which led to a pretty nasty, long, drawn-out argument. Vinegar and I have since sorted out our issues, but it's not the only instance of a situation like that occurring, and thus I addressed that specific example in order to offer this. There needs to be a system in place with written rules and exceptions. Who is allowed to do what? What are things that need approval? When is it okay to do without approval? Who can approve things? We, staff, had a conversation a few months back that ended in, we don't want to be pinged for everything, which is fine, but guidelines need to be set and stuck to avoid frustration and confusion. I won't spend too much time with this one, but I personally felt a bit ostracized by staff due to who my OOC friends were. I never quite felt like I fit in. Most other staff would frequently do connections together, faction together, etc. It's no secret that most staff have been staff for a long time and have made friends with each other. But I also feel that some staff hold a bit of disdain towards players they don't think fit their standards of RP. However, everyone has to start somewhere. Well, I think it's perfectly fine to know who you like RPing with. I do think that staff should give more effort to RPing and interacting with people outside of staff. Number 4. This is probably the biggest issue I have with PZRP. The fairness of who gets punished for what is abhorrent. Most of you are already aware of that, depending on who the person who's broken a rule is. They could get a slap on the wrist and get slapped with a warning, or they could get banned because they've already done XYZ, or simply, I don't like them. Once again, there needs to be a guide written. What rule break gets what? How many strikes does a person get? What rule breaks get you insta-permoed? I've seen someone with 10 to 11 hits on a wall of shame still get to stay and be a part of a community, as those people have staff/friends of staff. Whereas other players with many less offenses have been kicked because they aren't big. TLDR, there needs to be much more consistency, and everyone knows it. The inconsistency within punishments upsets a lot of people, understandably so. If our staff disagree with the points I've made, it's perfectly fine. I simply want to offer my own perspective regarding the time I spent in staff. Also, I was by no means of a perfect or best staff member, nor do I claim to be. I've made my share of mistakes. I simply hope by offering my perspective, the points I've made can be taken into account and considered as staff goes forward. In closing, that's pretty much all I have to say. I do wish staff the very best in your endeavor to make PZRP a better community. Iliol. Yeah. I agree with a lot of that. The rules need to be more clear. Season 17 when. Hopefully soon. Hopefully it's not too far away. Now, I think probably at least a month or 2. They got to take some time, reevaluate these rules, look at their staff. Everybody on staff needs to put in, like, work community side to, like, regain the trust of the community, you know? I think it can get better, but you know what I mean? I think it's gonna, like, take a bit of time as well. Taco Cat then responds, Gil Merce, I've already talked about staff clicks, and considering I never been any level of staff, I'm definitely not the guy to talk about how staff run behind the scenes. However, form reports and their handling of them is something that staff isn't very transparent about. Do these decisions have nuance and discussion to them? Probably. Is this expressed to the community? Not often. I think a lot of good can be done by adding more definitive outlining punishments or being more consistent. Obviously, every rule break and scenario are different, I get that, but ultimately the punishments, or lack thereof, rationale leaves to a lot to be desired. At the end of the day, a lot of reports as decisions slash restitutions come off as arbitrary or an example of favoritism. Again, are they? Probably not, but the lack of transparency leaves a lot to be desired and a lot in question, and thus a lot of room for dispute slash controversy. Oh. Okay, second page only has a few responses. And I might respond to this, because I really think it's important to bring up the stuff with staff. So, like, before I go for, like, I don't know, I guess I'll talk about it after. Like, some more of my opinions, you know? Cacti says, this is essentially such a vague question to make it impossible to answer. To tie things back to the original intent of my posts, how do you plan to change the way you handle staff management to accommodate these concerns? It's such a vague question that it's impossible to answer. Do you see claims of favoritism or inconsistent repercussions for staff, for different staff members as holding any water? Not really. Nobody's perfect. But for a community of narrow, spicy volunteers, we do pretty darn good. Do you have anything to comment on my section of player experience and staff philosophy? Yeah, the idea that we don't make allowances for or cater to player creativity is nonsensical. There are literally 9 or 10 lore tickets open right now as the season is getting shut down, with players exploring creative ways to interact with the world beyond what's mechanically possible. It happens all the time, every season. Massive construction projects, long-range radio communications, conspiracies with NPCs. Heck, Ferris and Future took an abandoned rail car and moved it on logs to sink it into a creek and form a bridge back in Season 13. If players can think it up, it's feasible and not absurd. Staff can make it happen, as good as any DM such GM should. A restaurant on barrels does not seem somewhat unrealistic. I imagine it had to do with the water tightness of the barrels versus the pontoons that would support such restaurants in real life. That said, I wasn't on that ticket, so I can't speak to those details. As for the spare tire, tile, I'm sorry for your friend, but we don't let players consume the game world / loot static titles. If we did, within a few weeks, there would be nothing standing. TVs, radios, furnitures, all this stuff would be off limits. So that the world is not completely stripped bare. That might be an unsatisfying answer, but it would be an even more unsatisfying answer for a new player to log in after 2 months of a season to find a million empty houses, garages, etc. I've seen this on servers. It's grim. Hope that answers your questions. Vinegar responds, man, if I had known I could do this, I would have done it a long time ago. Jokes aside, I'm not sure where we've ever banned anyone for something like that. In all seriousness, I do sort of agree with the rest of what you wrote. Crazy, right? We can opt for black and white moderation, which would make you break this rule, and there's a predefined guideline for a ban related to it. For instance, if you broke offline rating as a rule, our punishment guideline says it's a 3-day ban. Then there's no nuance behind it. There will be no warning, just a ban. This punishment guide, of course, would be available for the public. So we're gonna make offline bans like the thing that I did even more hardcore, which is great because so many players are accidentally doing it. You know, it's something that I think could like probably be fixed, but I'm not sure. Like people retracting messages, crazy. Typically, right now, a user's first offense in a form report, depending on the malousness of it, usually results in a written warden added to the wall of shame, meaning they have no prior offenses on the wall. I personally don't know if project leads can veto things. I've never tried to do it while I was one. It's an interesting question and something that should be elaborated on. I don't think so, though, not without significant reason to do so. At most, I've asked that decisions be put on hold for a period of time so they can be properly discussed. Just saying, yep, that was me, about them calling, him an insufferable asshole to Diaz. I hope I put it a bit nicer than that, though. And also adding, I know that from a player perspective, staff can seem scary and monolithic, and it's true, even I'm not perfectly nice all the time, try not to gasp. However, as a certified yapper, someone who regularly stands up for players and other staff, whether they've specifically asked me to, or just when I feel like they're getting a rough deal, as seen above, please feel free to reach out to me. I can't make promises or anything, but I'm good at yapping until something happens. So anyone hit me up if you want to chat about an issue. So that's where we're at. That is the 3 big forum posts. For those that don't know, I'm not gonna go over it too much, but staff toxicity was the biggest post I've ever fucking seen on this website. It addressed the fact that Vinegar was running a faction that was obvious. Was it? He had Dreaming of a Z Winter in his like status, and then it just kind of became like a whole like shitter debate. Like nothing really good came from it. At the end, it was like, okay, palette fresh. Let's go into a season positive mind, and try not to argue. But yeah, it is what it is. You know what I mean? What I want to go over a bit more, I suppose, like what I think about the staff feedback, because I have an interesting opinion on it. When it comes to the staff, it's very, how do I say, in your face. Like, here's their profiles, okay? Like, I can't. Let's say I want to go see Cacti's. I can go to Cacti's, about me. There's nothing here. He has some badges. He played in season 12 and 13. That's all I know. That's all I know about this guy. I've talked to Cacti, and like I've been around the community for a bit, so I know who some of these names are and whatnot. They're people behind the screen, you know. But the whole point being is like, I don't want to like fucking pick out anyone in specific and shit, but what I would like to see is, say, I don't know, if I go to someone's account, like, I don't know, Lore Team, Riot, there, I can see they've been active every season, like 12, 13, 14, 15, they have awards for. Even if they didn't have awards, let's see. For About Me isn't that hot, but their character pages are pretty high effort. Like, if I go to their character page, it's very high quality, sets a tone. New players can look at this and enjoy this. What's missing is personal touch for like staff. What I've seen like a lot of like servers do, they'll have like about us. Like the staff directory won't just be a directory to staff, you know? And this can always change. But say if Monkey Man, you know, if I go to his like About Me, I like monkeys. That's pretty straightforward. It doesn't have to be that in depth, but if for the player base to really connect with some of these people, I feel like, you know, and like remember that they're human beings, there has to be like some kind of post somewhere. Like maybe if in the forums there was a I don't know, like an official, in the official posts, yeah, you know, just do more of those. Have one for staff, like staff introductions. When you bring in a new staff member or community member or etc., have them explain a bit about their history with like the server, why they want to be in this position, you know, why they like the community or whatever, and things they want to do for the community in the future. You know, one of the problems that have heard from like a lot of players coming to me is with Winter getting back into game master. I think they were admin before, and they've now gotten like a promotion. A like last season they crashed out because their OOC plans didn't work out, which it's just kind of shitty. It's really click behavior. It's really like click enforcing. And I'm probably gonna get in shit for saying this, you know. I really don't want to point fingers or be naggy and stuff. And I'll be the first to say too, everybody that's been coming up to me asking me how I feel about Winter being back on admin team, I'm like, you know, I'm sure they do good work. I'm sure they help out the server a lot. I'm sure they do give a fuck. Um, but I have to come up with these things on my own. There's never been a post that's been like taking, um, like, hey, I'm back. Here's what's up. Moving on from last season, here's what I want to do this season, you know? A some stuff is very decisive. As for favorites, I really like it's tough. It's tough water. It's tough water. I could go into it. And I do think there's some people and some players that have a bit of plot armor, you know? Whether that be like OC motivated or etc. On an RP server, for instance, like I've had a character who had to sign a blood contract. You know, their hand was like cut. They signed the contract with their own blood, basically signing away their body and their life to another character. And they're forced to do this under while being held up by guns and shit. And apparently it was a really good PK request. It was just the fact that it was my second character and it conflicted that, you know, I had a main character on the server. So it was like, okay, shit. You know, maybe I get it. Okay. But now I don't want to play a second character. Or not, it is like a little bit of like, well, this player is doing a lot of lore stuff, or doing a lot of this, a lot of that. Another case is like, I put in a PK request on this other character, Fawn Wilkes. I had like, after like they were like one of like Kyle Crocodile's biggest enemies, at least like always on the radio shitting on him, spreading rumors about him. Everybody was like, and OOC too, you know, doing it in general as well and shit on the Discord, like steering the narrative about Kyle and like up his fucking hoo-ha, you know. So like it came to a point where once this player was like actively engaging in like PvP now as well, I was like, cool, I wanted to put in a PK request to try to like escalate it and shit. I got told it seemed very OOC motivated, and that was unfortunate because like my extension to like invite this player over to have an interview didn't really land. Any RP I had with other people around those characters wasn't landing at the time. It's just like the nature of a server, you know? Perhaps you need a kidnapping to solve that, you know? And I'm aware of like the outcome. It's like the problem was we also, when this person came in, when Fawn had came into our Spore Cave mission, a shootout happened, you know, they weren't supposed to be there, blah blah blah, etc. But we got them rev RP'd. Then we wanted to like prisoner RP for an hour. We wanted to take them in a different room. We weren't gonna torture, but we were gonna set the scene and give them like really cool RP, and then like let them go after an hour or some shit. Because like we wanted to do some next level shit because the shit was getting boring and the whole scene was like crashed and tanked. I opened up a ticket asking like, you know, because we couldn't get prisoner perms, like what's up, like how does this work, because they are an aggressor against our faction, so we just give them their stuff and they leave. And yeah, I was told like I gotta look at the rules, blah blah blah, and it was all handled right away by one of his players, like close friends, that they role played with last season and that we're role playing with this season. You know, there's a lot of like favoritism on that aspect. And then since then I've definitely had certain people that don't seem too happy to deal with me, whether that's in game or out of game, you know. But I don't want to pry on that too much. Going back to the staff, this conversation here. Yeah, being reinstated to staff after returning for season 16 with no application. You know, it's like, as far as I know, the game master of season 17 right now, one of the two game masters of season 17 completely didn't give a fuck about season 15, so much to the degree that they crashed out, ripped up all our clothing, and then quit the season after they got a little PP slap. Like, they left the admin team, etc. Like, it was just a crash out. So I get it, like, they're friends, and I get it, they've been here for, like, a long time, but the reality of the situation is really bad. You know, it's like, right now, it's not looking too good. I haven't seen any accountability. I haven't even seen Winter in any of these threads, you know? I don't know their activity in the community. I don't know what they do. Maybe they're just a dedicated tile picker. Maybe they just provide RP for their people. I don't know. You know, all I do know is that my experiences as a player, unfortunately, have been pretty negative with them. And there was nothing that was really put out, like, statement-wise towards the community or towards me, or that I could tell anyone, other than pulling shit out my ass and saying, well, you know, they're probably a good tile maker or tile picker. They probably help out on the server. I'm sure it's not that deep. And the response I get to that is, yeah, no, I think time will tell. You know, like, people are speculative, because it's like, what the fuck? It's very silly shit. I got my 1-day ban. So, like, and I'll go back to reference. Like, I'll show you guys the thing, because it's prevalent. Like, I think it's very important, especially because it was, like, not addressed at all. Let's see. It was fail RP and griefing. So, Winter got a 4-day ban in total for this. And in this thread, as far as I remember, their response was not very, like, they didn't take accountability. They had some, like, silly reasons, you know, as far as, like, why they did. Like, just sound, I'll read it out, and you guys tell me if this sounds like somebody you want to lead the community, you know, for the next season. So, I showed up as a new player, and this happened on November 5th. So this was like 3 months ago. I'm 2 months into the season. The concern for this ticket is the behavior shown by Winterfey and Durban, both in and out of game. These two players, after vacation for a majority of a season, were upset that we had turned into an RP hub. This ended in them fail RPing, using admin features which removed a wall we built, taking a majority of our ammo, high-end gear, and griefing our base by deliberately ripping up our RP clothing, lots of which was donor shop. So on the 5th, Aiden and Faye both returned and started with an explosive meeting. They were upset we had businesses like Adelaide's Bakery and didn't want Elysium to become an RP hub. This was an OC-driven decision in which Aiden and Faye were steering all of us into. Starting with the wall in the photo above, you can see Faye right there hitting it with a sledgehammer. After destroying 2 walls, Faye switches to admin and deletes the entire wall. This RP steered all of us while we spent days collecting nails and building the wall in order to protect ourselves. The IC reason was to keep businesses and homes separate, and Paul Russell, another character at the time, just got beheaded on the 101 like a few days ago. So one of our main priorities in character was increasing security and making it more protectable. So we built that wall. Anyways, if I wanted to do that, I would have had to RP sledgehammering it out either for an hour or two, or I would have had to open up a ticket and go through the process so they could have record logs of it and stuff, you know? Winter has resigned after the meeting. The website has not been updated. PS hi. She's already resigned and given up? No way. I mean, my apologies. Just like, no way. No way. I'll fucking lose. I'll crash out. You know? No, it's like, that's not the solution I want. That's not everybody just giving up and like leaving isn't like the solution that I want, or I think is going to be what's it called, like productive for the community. At least it's good that, like, yeah, they probably just like have given up at this point, because if their love or passion isn't there for the community at all, then they shouldn't be a game master. I know other players that I RP'd with last season, and that are players that I didn't RP with a lot, that I only had a few interactions with, who I think would be great on staff team or in that type of position, you know? Either way, though, like, going on, it is good to know that they got taken off. It's just, it's blowing my mind because, yeah, putting it all together, this is the ticket where, like, a lot of shit was said. A lot of people, and, like, a lot of people burned out. A lot of people were upset by this. Look at how many POVs we had to have. Almost a dozen fucking POVs. Why can't we have one POV from, like, an admin saying a bit about themselves, what they want to do for the season, what they want to provide, what they enjoyed providing in previous seasons? Because, like, I don't mean to, like, bring this shit up to, like, demonize these people. It's the fact of, like, how do I have a chill human connection with these people when I know nothing about them other than form drama stuff, you know? Like, I think it would definitely help to have, like, a staff introduction thing, or, like, here's this member of a staff, and they make a forum post about, like, you know, some basic criteria stuff or whatever. I don't know. It would at least help on the aspect of, like, yeah, players bringing that up to me and kind of, like, you know, crashing out. I brought it up that players were unhappy with the decision of her coming back to staff. No, thank you. Because, yeah, it's concerning, you know? It was the biggest example of how cliquey and how, like, oh, you're my friend and we did stuff in another season, so you're gonna be at, like, the top of the chain for next season. It doesn't make sense, you know? I've done good things last season. I've done good things this season. Doesn't, like, you know, like, doesn't mean that, like, that, like, even if I was in that position, I shouldn't be able to, like, go into it without, like, a clear outline of, like, hey, this is what I plan to provide. This is how I want to do it. This is why I care about this community. And this is why I think I'm going to make it a better place and stuff. I don't know the intricacies of, like, behind the scenes of staff and stuff. But yeah, it's just, that's the whole player base connect. Because it leads to players just being like, oh, it's this person, or it's this person, you know, or, like, it's this person's name. And I think, like, that can all be worked out, or, like, worked on in time or whatever. But yeah, other than that, like, it's just proven a lot of staff, like, look, Winter has left, Etso left, like, people are just, like, stepping down. It just kind of shows to me that, like, yeah, like, perhaps they were good with the community a few seasons ago, but with the way that the community evolves and how servers evolve, you need people that are, like, willing to adapt to those, like, changes and, like, do the best that they can with them and shit, you know? Anyways, though, to, like, kind of summarize this, it was, like, very lame, like, at the time for all of us to deal with. About, like, 12 or so of us, like, almost crashed out. And if it wasn't for Vinegar actually getting involved in this, because I talked to TRO, and then TRO, linked me through Vinegar, and then Diaz, and if it wasn't for, like, those three, I probably would have quit, you know? I probably would have stopped playing, because I felt so, like, rejected at the time, due to numerous things. So shitty. Like, you know, I was so pissed off while writing this. Like, look, I like, I'm so fucking passive aggressive here. Couple more things. Aiden whined about doing an armory log. Poor Marcus filled it out and had all of his stuff taken a few hours after. Comical. You know? But this is what I remember them from. And, like, when I go to look at, like, you know, Winter's, like, response, the response was like, oh, well, I had a bunch of thread. I had 100 spools of thread. Now that I've been offline for 2 weeks, I didn't want it. You know, they also left every piece of thread that had enough in it so that you couldn't use it for anything, you know? There's, like, 49 pieces of, like, nothing thread or whatever. There's a lot of things that were done that were, like, very, like, intended to piss us off, and it wasn't the RP that we wanted or, like, we intended for. And it's almost similar to, like, what I did to Funky Egg, where, like, I left a Russian note and I took their stuff. The only problem is that, like, my situation was, like, I have so many things in Factor. Like, one, the rules. Get rid of stashes. I don't know what the fuck this base thing is. Like, I'll freak out about this right now. Stashes. Player may have any number of stashes in addition to their base. A stash is an area outside of your base where your character puts their belongings. stashes are not raid protected and may not be barricaded in any way. On a world map, Project Russia, where Valor Team and the map just in general has barricades on a majority of the buildings, and it's 5 years after, so there's already a lot of buildings that are barricaded. It's like, it's just kind of silly, you know? Fuck, I took 50 pounds of stuff and I was almost hung at the cross, you know? But, like, thankfully, it was like, I understood right away, like, okay, yeah, no, this was someone's actual base, and, like, like I said, the main problem of mine was that killing that note thing, because then I go to, like, another Discord, and, you know, Necrokek's in there, and he's like, oh my god, I know who wrote the note. The Russian notes, it was Croc. He's in a report for a similar thing. Look here. It's so fucking silly, dude. It's so stupid. Like, it's just gonna make people crash the fuck out. I think it's funny. I do like these dynamics and shit. I'm interested. And, like, I live for this shit to get better. I'm one of the, like, core people that's been telling people, like, look, you go to, like, there's thousands of different fucking servers, and you can always choose between any server, right? Like, the reason why I write the feedback posts, or, like, I try to, like, take the community serious, is because I feel like it takes itself serious. And it's not like a lot of different, it's not like a lot of servers or, like, communities I've been a part where the disconnect is so heavy. I've seen a lot of good stuff come from, like, staff decision and the lore team and other stuff like that. On the other flip end, I've also seen a lot of, like, questionable, like, very eyebrow-raising decisions. I don't like the whole, a lot of the times when a player has a concern, it's like, shut down. So one of my concerns was, like, the loot this season is ass. You can't really get much, you know? I would want you to read the post I wrote on Chance's post. I think I did earlier. And yeah, I think, like, the mini, like, break and, like, just time for them to, like, really, them to work on what they want to do for next season, and then everybody to get a break so that they can come back to next season excited and, you know, ready to RP. Because maybe people are too bored of RP, so that's why they're going so antag and stuff. I was playing on a server a few seasons ago. Winter was one of the best helpers on staff team. She was always kind of a players and helped me and my group the best way she could. Maybe a problem is that over time it becomes frustrating to work in a team where no matter how much you care and do your best, and then your opinion doesn't matter to the seniors. Yeah, and even this season, Winter's been, like, really good on one of my tickets. I asked for, like, a boxing ring, and they got back to me, like, the next day. I believe it was them. I'll go check. Yeah, you know, they've been really good on my tickets and stuff. And, like, I've had nothing but positive interactions with Winter this season. It's just, I've had so many people ask me about the negative interactions with Winter because none of it was really, like, addressed and stuff, you know? I think going forward, if they're, like, to bring back somebody like that, like, say they're to bring back Vinegar as a project lead, or they're to bring back somebody else as a staff member, then, like, you know, that type of stuff should be addressed, just because, like, it really does, like, rumor mill, like, fast, you know? There's been some IRL things Winter was handling from what I heard, as I don't know her personally, but I think it was just bad time, bad place situation. Yeah, no, that's fair. And like I said, it's like, I, like, I want everybody else to remember too, like, the people behind these usernames are, like, people and shit. And we're all here for the same reason, like, kind of enjoy the community and other stuff or whatever. Just reflecting on it. Like I said, like, with another admin player, it's earlier in the stream, they had given me, like, a note. I'll see if I can find the video of it, because it's such a, like, I wasn't live streaming much for past bit just because the RP was, you know, it was what it was, you know, we were making the most of it, doing what we could with what we could. But a lot of times was very, how do I say, stressful, or just, like, not that fun. Just because of the loot and stuff, and RP that I got wasn't really top tier. And I think the person that kind of provided us this like lackluster NPC-esque mission um definitely helped contribute to some of like crappier parts of a season for people. Let me see. I hope I was recording it. I forget what day it was on. I think I'm coming near it almost. But anyways, yeah, I was like given like a poem, and when it comes to admin level players or players that are a bit higher end, I just expect the RP that they try to provide other people. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so I'll show you guys. I do feel hopeful after a lot of things we discussed that I brought up, and so did other staff. We are moving in the right direction. We just need some time to cool. No, totally. I think this is like I'm way more feeling better now that everybody's like been able to voice some of their frustrations and opinions up. And I wanted to do a stream so I could read it and go through it and you know, kind of get some of my thoughts pieced together, because I have a few things that I might want to add in, but I've already given my feedback like privately this season, and I'm not really on the Vinegar hate train either, because Vinegar's really personally done nothing but go out of his way to help me on the server and whatnot, you know. I have had like nothing but good interactions with him. So it like I'm looking at this from like a way different, like not a different lens, but just my own lens and stuff, just the same way like everyone else is. But I think it's very like important in a way for everyone to like reflect on it and think, you know. Like the reason why I want to bring up this RP scenario is because I want you guys to think how difficult this is for most people to pull off. So I was told too, like in my feedback about like just the loot being really difficult this season, that say do like I said, you know, like one of the problems is like we can't get guns, like we can't find guns. We want to kill zombies, or we just want to like participate in the game, but we can't get that type of stuff. And like I was definitely told like something along the lines of you know, well, do you need guns? Do you need guns to RP? And it's like, well, technically not, but I kind of like do in a way for some stuff. Okay, give me a moment. Bear with me. So, Lyle, Dial, Julian, and Markov were standing at the base. This character, Rusika, comes up. I believe I checked to see who it was. Their eyes, so they eye each and every one of them up and down. Their eyes are visible between the slits of their mask. Their eyes finally settle on Lyle. They continue to stare for a few moments later. Or a few moments longer. So I start recording here. I'm not initiated on yet, you know? We're kind of like about to be. So I ask, are you hungry or cold? We have some food and a warm fire if you need to take a rest. Julian says, or a smoke if that helps you relax as well. Rusalka says, yeah, this. So who? I believe it was fucking the one admin I'm thinking of. I don't know. It was. So yeah, it was Etso. So they're playing a masked character. I have had no interactions with their character in prison. Their character knows my character, and they've come here on like a specific mission. Important to note, they came out of a forest, so they either like stalked me down or like it was just coincidental events. Either way, they go, put your hands up and drop your guns, or I'll skin you alive. They're like, now. So I emote and looking disappointed as he looks at his comrades and nods to do the same as he lifts his hands. I decide to go with it. Well, welcome. Who may I have the pleasure of being robbed by, if I may ask? You're more than welcome to anything you need, so please do indulge me. Why the hostility? Julian complies scared, but mostly disappointment shows on his face. Come in. Take what little we have. I'm sure you have more in that bag of yours, amiga. Which is true. They have more loot than us, you know? He's like, you will all keep your things at the end of this. Bring the rifle over. So anyways, we do exchange, yada yada. Line up. Odile, step forward. I emote Lyle is underweight at the moment, carrying mostly tools and odds and ends. As she's like searching me, you know. They trade me a note, so they put 2 notes into my character's like pouch or whatever, you know. The first note says, find a way inside of a building and bring this to NATO Scum and Dogleprundi. Find a way inside of a building and place the other sheet of paper in the bedroom of a woman called Strige. If you tell them that I sent you, you will be killed. If you call for help, you will be killed. If you fail, you will be killed. Next part. Wait for me, part 2. Wait for me and I'll come back. Wait in patience, blah, blah. It's a poem. I don't know part 1. No RP came after this. I'll let you guys know. I got nothing out of this. I ended up... so we promise we're not gonna tell anyone. One of our other guys logs back in to getting robbed. He's like, what the fuck? But yeah, funny shit. Anyways, though, and my boys, man. Julian, Otto, Markov. Some good RPers. I had a lot of good time this season, too, you know? I might still be hopping on if we're going to keep the server up for the rest of the season, just to, like, spin it out, see how it goes, you know? Play it a little bit more for fun or casual in RP when I want. But we worked our asses off. We tried our best, you know? We got the fucking work after. We start building the walls. Anyways, our base is nothing right now. We have nothing. We have no loot. Our wall isn't even half done. I now have this mission that, as far as, like, I'm concerned and my boys are concerned, it's like life or death, or it's very important, you know? This is like PK ticket territory. So what I don't really understand is, like, where this came from, why my character was targeted, why I had to deliver the note, when I had no interactions with that character or that person previous. My interactions with them last season, they were a bit against my character, and that was it. But other than that, it was, like, in tickets when it came to, like, trying to kidnap one person. Or not kidnap them, but, like, prisoner them after we shot them down in the cave. Tried to make the best out of an RP scenario. They're the first to, like, shut it down, you know? And hop in it. So I am not sure about this, you know? How this has ended is that person has, like, left the server and, like, just taken a step back. And the RP they provided was very lackluster and shitty. I feel like they looked at me from last season, and they looked at the day or 2 that I had RP'd in prison, and then had decided to send me on this massive fucking thing, like I was, like, some type of, like, high-value NPC. That's just how I feel, you know? I'm a player at the end of the day, and I feel like a lot of other people are gonna have different opinions. They might have similar. I just think it's important to reflect on shit like this. I think admins should probably have, like, a better... Like, it would be cool if 3 days later I had a note at my gate, or they had came back or done anything to confirm I had completed the mission or done anything, but no RP came from this. Maybe I was supposed to rat them out or look for help. Maybe I could have went about that route, blah, blah. The point being, though, is that going with the RP that was steered and provided for me by an admin level player led me to about, I don't know, 4 to 5 hours of, like, soul searching the fucking map, trying to find Strige. You know, like, thank God they had a note on their door. But that's my gripe with that situation, you know? It's kind of silly. There's not much to it. It's just, I think when it comes to admin level players, they really have to just make it more human. Like I said, with a staff list, like it would be cool if it wasn't either in staff list or, like, about us or some shit, you know. Plans of theirs, how we're gonna provide good RP, if they're gonna be an antag, how they're gonna do it. Like TRL, he played an antag, he played Roy Cobre, but he wrote out, like, ways that he was gonna kill a character, then he left his door unlocked. And he did shit like that, and like different decisions and different ways that he ran his character in order for others to engage with it and think what they want to and etc. and pursue it if they want. And yeah, if you know, like if you caught him at the base and he was doing stuff at the base, you could totally go in his room, emote looking at the shit, emote fucking taking photos or copies of it and whatnot. A you know, that was open for other people to discover if they pursued it and stuff, you know? I feel like a lot of antags this season were very like hostile focused. Like maybe there's some kind of deep plot behind the poems, but I don't get it. It wasn't like constructive to my RP. And what it did do was it led to me not being able to loot for the next day or two as I try to like search for his place. Like I was looting a bit, but you know what I mean? It's a I'm glad at least they did it to me if they didn't do it to some other player, because I think most other players probably would have really not appreciated that at all. I thought the Mission Impossible sneaking into the base was cool. I just think it could have been performed a bit better. And if they want to go through on doing RP like that, then it should be really well respected, like a few days after, or try to engage with. I would have loved to talk to that character more. I would have loved to know why they were so hostile. Like my character told our boys, like, oh, well, maybe she's been robbed, or maybe she's had bad experiences. I could have got I could have gotten a better understanding of his character, and I should have, because I completed the mission and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't involve anyone. I didn't get caught. I delivered the note. I put it in a room, and I got like nothing for it. You know, that's just like that was just my concerning experience this season. Like that one scenario, that one stands like that's the biggest eyebrow raise to me. But other than that, there's a lot of good RP that came from this season. Like I said at the start, like Cladvy was super cool. Fucking Markov, goddamn Otto, Julian, fuck, there's so many people, you know, like and it was all done IC. None of it was OOC planned. Like I really want to roleplay. I get OOC character connections, but I think that might also be a thing that kind of stifled this season. A lot of people went in it with their character connection and their plans with other players instead of just developing these plans and stuff, you know. And maybe I just was on the bad side of it, you know. I didn't get the best experience because I didn't have character connections. But yeah, at least like looking at it, you know, there's a lot of things that can be like taken away from this. I think in general, what's it called? They are in announcements. Cacti says, seems pretty clear y'all don't want to mess with the Intermin season. After several requests, what we will be doing is leaving the server up as is on Project Russia for as long as we can after the shutdown date. So players can still roleplay, build, kill zombies if they want to. There will be no staff intervention, tickets, tile picker, crafting, etc. We will be focused on getting 17 out in the best possible shape. There may be some events depending on staff availability, but don't count on it. That said, players be expected to follow our rule set even on the post-season 16 sandbox. That kind of sucks. I get why they don't want to do tickets, but damn. I have my boxing ring, I have a radio tower, and I have a printing press. Those were really my only 3 things keeping me for playing this season, other than like RPing with my dudes and stuff. So it's gonna be a good time to like just sit back, take a break from the season and stuff, you know. It was a lot, but like I said, I think it can get better. I think it was pretty constructive for people to engage in that conversation. I don't know if I'll add much more to it. I said what I wanted to on stream, and like I think everything's been addressed and like followed up with. So wow, yeah, that was like this is like 2 times longer than the fucking lore live stream. I am so sorry, lore team. Yeah. No, it's it is what it is. It isn't the end of a world, it's the end of a season, and things can get a lot better next season. I'm looking forward to next season. Sorry to poor Lyle O'Dial, bringing him into this dumb world. But I had a lot of fun with him, you know. Lion amongst dogs, lion amongst dogs. Yeah, all in all though, it's like this type of shit happens. It's like I was saying it, I didn't want the season to continue on a fucking stale note, so it's kind of cool that we're just shutting it down, you know? It's about time. Anyways, though, I think I'm gonna end the stream, go get something to eat, and hop on recording some other stuff. Make sure you check out Crockhammer or Cool Kid Croc, my other channels, if you're interested, or you subscribe to this channel and look out other videos. I might have a video or two coming out about Season 16, because I did have some cool RP that happened from it. It was very few and in between, but it might happen, so keep an eye out for that. Either way, though, I hope this stream was chill and you guys enjoyed it. As always,